Morning, and warm welcome to all the participants. Thank you, Dr. Uttara, for that extended introduction. Uh, it's a privilege to be a part of this very interesting topic because, as we all know, that Kerala government has declared Kerala to be transformed as a knowledge society, and we academicians have a great role in ensuring that this transition is going to happen in a very short period of time. When Kerala is focusing its growth on knowledge products and knowledge development, it is the academic institutions which are going to be the real temples of growth in the days to come. As we know that when India became independent, our honorable Prime Minister at that time set up large industrial units, and he said that these are going to be the temples of growth, and which actually definitely have paved a way for India's growth in 50s, 60s, and 70s. Now, at this point of time, when the world itself is moving into more of knowledge products and knowledge systems, and the competition between the countries are primarily on the intellectual properties, it's important that we augment our research, we augment our knowledge production, and also support creation of knowledge ecosystem around us. So I think the reason why such an FDP on cross-disciplinarity in research is actually being started by Kerala State Higher Education Council in this larger background. And I'm sure that all the earlier speakers have given quite a bit of insight into the challenges, opportunities, requirement of interdisciplinary research and the methodologies per se. So I would like to speak on few aspects today in this session, and primarily looking at some of the methodologies which we can adopt, the existing challenges, and why do we really require to do some of these aspects are something which we will discuss. Now, Dr. Uttara said that you need to keep your mic mute, which is preferable because we don't want to have unnecessary sounds coming in. But I also request that if anybody has to speak, please on to the topic which we are going to discuss, please do unmute and speak, or you can send, I believe, by chat. I think that will also be visible here. So you can also send by chat, because as I'm sure that all of us have taught in the last 2 years over this platform, and we don't want this to be a graveyard session where the speaker speaks to a large number of people who are muted and maybe involved in other work. But I think we need to make it as a more of a participatory session, because as a whole, this topic of cross-disciplinarity is very relevant, and I will tell you why as we proceed. And so that can actually be become meaningful only if we really have a proper interaction between us. So we are basically looking at this from the point of view of the changes which is happening all around us, especially in what we call as the new normal in the ecosystem, which, as I said, is to a large extent is redefining the roles of higher education institutions. Not only in Kerala, not only in India, even globally, the institutions are actually started redefining the way they are actually going to function in the next 5 to 10 years, and even further than that. There's a huge amount of resources which is available today in public domain. You have very strong AI tools which are helping people learn. A multitude of technologies which are far better in pedagogies than what we have. So there is a huge amount of changes which is happening. I'm sure that there are people around us, among us, who believe that these are all fads, or this may not really make change in the innate traits of education, and the role of teacher will remain same, which can actually be a a thought process. But the reality is that along with what is happening in the classroom, there is quite a bit of changes happening around us. And there is a very strong school of thought which says that the students' learning process today is actually moving away from so-called organized classrooms to outside the classrooms. I'm sure there are many people here who may not agree to or subscribe to this view. But let's ask a very simple question that if we don't keep attendance as mandatory, 70% or 72%, today we are debating on many of those aspects. If you don't keep attendance as mandatory, how many of the students will attend our classes? If we can say that a large number of students attend our classes, the theory that the conventional mode of education is relevant, excellent, and delivering results is actually valid. But if the answer is no, you will have only very few people who are going to attend. And then the question comes is, well, we need to actually reinvent the way we look at the teaching learning process. But more importantly, along with the teaching learning process, obviously that is not the focus of this FDP. This FDP actually focuses on the larger role an academic has to play, which is the research. And why? Because conventionally, we know that be it the regulatory bodies, be it the institutions, policies, be it the accreditation, these are all actually pushes into the research. And a few people actually do it because they are extremely motivated to create the new knowledge. So in reality is that there is a compulsion to do the research. There is a level of motivation to do the research. Now, if all of us have got the genuine motivation to do the research, that is actually the perfect world, in the sense of perfect world. But realities may not be there. You have quite a few people who are doing it because they have been forced to do that. So in the process of doing that, there are a lot of gaps which happens, and many times the result of our research is becoming publications, reports, and which may not really translate into something really useful for the society. And that's something where the question mark comes. So you have a teaching which we were primarily doing as academics. It is getting challenged because of huge amount of resources, better methodologies, better techniques available around us. The core aspect of research, which is the other role of a teacher, you really require an improvement in the way we do that. So the focus, I believe, is that how do we actually sharpen that aspect, especially when the newer HEIs, higher education institutions, have got that role. So, for example, the institution which I had, which we started only 2 years back. In fact, Dr. Uttara said it's 2000. Actually, we started in 2020. We made a very conscious call that as a new university, we will actually be focusing only on research. So I have a large number of postdoctoral fellows, a large number of doctoral fellows. We have also postgraduate students, but we have reasonably large number of doctoral and postdoctoral fellows. The result is very evident because the role university can actually play in creating knowledge has actually going into the in an exponential manner. I'm not speaking only about publications. Publications, we are actually the per person productivity in our university is actually one of the best in the state. But more than that, we could actually file a large number of patents. We in the last 1 year itself, we have filed more than around 25, 26 patents with a very small number. And more importantly, we could also create structures which can actually make economic development through research. So that's a slightly different model, which we believe is the way the higher education institutions are going to proceed in the days to come. So that's one important element where many of us who are part of research, who are motivated to do research, and we are also being compelled to do research, can actually start looking at repositioning our research into that area. That's basically what we call as a transformation, because it's time that we need to move beyond the publications. Here again, there is a research dilemma which comes. So for example, when I say that we have close to 25, 26 patents which filed in a very short period of time, naturally the question comes is that if you have publications, then you cannot really make it into patents, because the moment you go for patents, if you have already published, the patent office may not accept it unless you have a clever way of doing that. So in such a context, as an academic, I am measured more through my publications, my UGC measures through my publications, my accreditation bodies looks through my publications. How do I actually do something about an IP creation which can actually be filed as a patent? So there is a research dilemma there. The second aspect is that if, especially for avid researchers, we know that if you really wanted to enhance the publications, we need to really focus on a smaller area and go deeper and deeper into it. That actually may be counterintuitive or counterproductive to a cross-disciplinary research, which looks at a bit more a larger problems per se. So there's a research dilemma comes in as far as an individual is concerned. So that's something which we will discuss depending upon the interest. But in fact, if you really wanted to make impact for your research, and what is that impact, I will come back with more details and more aspects. I believe that we really started to look at more through interdisciplinary research. And you must have already been discussed in the very first class onwards that what is the difference between what we call as disciplinary research, multidisciplinary research, and interdisciplinary research. I'll come back to that very soon to recap on that. But before we go further, let me also put one more point that this is very relevant because of two real aspects as such, because we have two key elements which is happening in our economy, in around us. One is that there is a national education policy which is coming in picture. So there is a national education policy which is coming into front of us, which is at a national level. But in state level, we have a Kerala Knowledge Economy Mission or a Kerala Knowledge Economy initiative which is happening. Both these are actually going to redefine quite a bit in our organizational and institutional structures. I used to say that if you look at NEP, we are not here to discuss the positives and negatives of NEP and how NEP can create marginalization and many of those aspects, which is I'm sure that many teacher forums used to debate and discuss. But one thing is something which we need to make sort of be aware of. If you look at 1990s, 1990s is a time when India took a very major reform. Whatever be the reasons for the reform is something which is beyond the topic of, beyond the scope of our discussion. But we have taken a major decision. We have actually quite a bit of liberalization. We have made quite a bit of opening up of the economy. We have changed quite a bit of rules and things like that. So a lot of regulations got shifted at that point of period of time, very, very short period of time, maybe 91 to 90 to 93 of that period. But what is important for us to look at is that if we start looking at those organizations who were there at 1990s, and some of the social scientists here must have done interesting studies on this, how people have changed, how organizations have affected, how the poverty levels have been altered, how marginalization must have increased. So a lot of research work has been done on that. But even for a casual observer, if you look at in 1990s, the organizations which were there, and today you look at those organizations, you will see that a large number of organizations are not there, or they are performing extremely badly. Who were leaders at that point of time. Say, for example, Keltron in our context, or HMT in other in national level. These are organizations which are actually went into oblivion in a very short period of time. They actually become obsolete in a very, very short period of time because of change in the policies per se. At the other side, there were organizations who were there at that time who actually grown big, become much, much bigger, become maybe globally recognized, become very big assets. So a change in the business policy or regulatory environment actually affected a few businesses negatively, a few businesses positively. Now, the similar regulatory challenge is coming into educational space. Whether we like it or not, whether we subscribe to that, whether we oppose to that, these are all secondary aspects, which is something which we need to look at it and see how we'll adopt it in a very efficient manner. But what is reality is that the impact of national education policy will be very similar to what happened in the in 80s to business enterprises, where few will actually excel, a few will actually vanish, and it is for our role and duty to ensure that we actually become a part of the ones who really grow and excel at individual level, at institutional level. And that can be done only if you redefine the role of academic and academic research. So my premise in the whole discussion today, maybe for an hour we will be discussing, and after that, in between also we will take questions, but after that we will have more question answer sessions. The question is that if you really wanted to look at sustain in this world of change and to ensure that we excel, it's important that we need to really relook at what we do as research in the system person. So going further, so we said that we were looking at three aspects of research, which as I said, we must have discussed earlier about disciplinary research. A disciplinary research is primarily you look at specific aspects in a particular discipline and then start working on that. A subset of that is what we call as a borrowing research. Borrowing research is basically that you do a problem in a particular discipline, but you may borrow a concept from another discipline. So you may actually start doing design thinking in educational research. But design thinking is not a tool or a methodology which is available, which was originally in educational research. It is a part of architectural or design field. So you take from architectural field a concept, apply in an educational field. That's what we call as a borrowing research. So here, tool or technique framework is taken from another discipline per se. The other thing is a multidisciplinary research, and I'm sure that people here understand that multidisciplinary research is something where a problem will be looked at from multiple disciplines. You may look from science, you may look from social science, you may look from an engineering, you may look from maybe from philosophical aspects. So multiple aspects are being looked at. It's basically what a multidisciplinary research speaks about. But when you look at cross-disciplinary or interdisciplinary research, you are actually not doing that. You actually try to integrate all of them and may come with completely a new field of research per se. So I'm sure that this was discussed quite a bit, so I don't want to go into that. But let me just to get a feel of what you are, and also to get a feel of to keep the interactivity. Let me just pose you a quiz. I mean, not a quiz, a poll. So I hope that all of you have your mobile. So you just please log into the slido.com, and then you will get give this number. So you will get these options. So you can just select one of these options. So basically, I just wanted to get your understanding of what is an interdisciplinary research. The interesting thing is that, unfortunately, I mean, sorry for this. Unfortunately, none of these answers are correct. So which actually shows that maybe you still are not clear about what is the difference between interdisciplinary research and multidisciplinary research and the disciplinary research per se. So let's look at, and I'm sure first one is something which all of us are very familiar with. So if you do, and many of us in our PhD research also have done this, right? We wanted to use a statistical tool, or we wanted to use a statistical method to validate, to make it general. If I'm using a new fertilizer, I create an experiential design so that I can actually use it to generalize the results, or even to make the validity of the results. Now, that is a good example of multidisciplinary research. It is not interdisciplinary research. Why is it multidisciplinary research? Because one part of it, that is to validation of it, to make a sample discussion, because we will be looking, sample observation can actually be generalized under certain conditions. That is primarily a domain of statistics, and the statistical tools are there. We try to adopt that tools into our context. So your larger problem, a problem where you are looking at, and we wanted to, since contributing to theory, we wanted to generalize it to the extent possible. So that issue of generalizing to the issue possible, we actually take the tools and techniques from statistics. It is a multi-dimensional, multidisciplinary approach. Now let us look at the second point, which I think maximum people have answered is none of the above, which is also not fully true. I have actually given one choice, which is interdisciplinary research here. And the third highest option is primarily on a new model for optimization derived, looking at natural movement of ants, which is called ant colony optimization. Those of you who are in optimization things knows. It's a very simple thing. See, if you look at ants, a natural movement of ants, a biological purpose, and then start seeing, can I use that for creating a new optimization model in a different space, maybe in engineering, maybe in structural models, maybe in civil engineering, maybe in physics, or maybe in let's say in some theoretical areas in graph theory. All of them are primarily what we call as a borrowed research. In a borrowed research, what we are trying to do is model topics in a we are actually converting into our problem. I mean, in the domain which I come from, which is management, we have a very classic case of a very well-known Nobel winning work in options called Black-Scholes model, which is primarily the entire research is in finance, but completely borrowed from mechanical engineering, that is heat transfer. So they used heat transfer model and applied in finance area, and they came out with a Nobel winning model per se, and it is used extensively by people. So that is called what we call as a borrowed research. Since that is not a topic in our discussion, we will not go into detail of that. We will, if somebody has questions, we can ask. Now let's look at the fourth option, cybersecurity. Now cybersecurity, as you know, is a research which is happening on the cyber crimes. And how do you actually make our behavior, our activities in cyberspace very safe? Now, this involves not parts, but whole. Say, for example, this involves psychology of people, sociology of people when they interact, psychology of people when they interact in an anonymous manner. This technology part of it, that is from engineering or from a mathematics, the methods which can actually be used, like cryptography. You have strong engineering tools. So all of them combined together, you derive a new discipline. Cybersecurity as a discipline cannot exist if you remove sociology from it. Cybersecurity as a discipline cannot remain if mathematics is removed from it. So it is a discipline. It's a completely new discipline where multiple people come together and solve a new problem. A completely new problem. The cybersecurity was not there in 20 years back, right? Because I still remember I did a program for all top police officers in this country way back in 2000, where we actually said that public order is actually going to move more from physical world to a cyber world. And that's a very early training program. And that time you still have cybersecurity emerged as a discipline. But today cybersecurity has emerged as a discipline, which includes social theories, which includes behavioral aspects from a psychology, which includes social aspects from a sociology, which includes mathematical aspects from mathematics, and engineering aspects from engineering. They combine together, make what we call as the interdisciplinary research or a cross-disciplinary research. So this is the difference between disciplinary research, multidisciplinary research, and cross-disciplinary research. So in other words, this is a very interesting paper which I very strongly advocate that you can read if some of you are more interested to go into the more detail of it, which is published in the qualitative report in 2019, I believe, where the authors have actually shown how basically the difference between these different areas as such. Just like the agriculture problem which we spoke, the agriculture problem is a research problem here. So it used theory from agriculture, maybe fertilizer development, maybe from biotechnology. It took from that. It also adopted theory from statistics, because you also have statistical aspects which is required to do it, but they don't combine. The problems part is done here, part is done here, part is done somewhere with some other discipline as such. So that is a multidisciplinary research. When you come to interdisciplinary research, it is not parts. The multiple disciplines come together, just like what we said: sociological discipline, the psychological discipline, the mathematical discipline, maybe computer science discipline. All of them come together and created a completely new set of area called cybersecurity. So this is the difference between cross-disciplinary research and multidisciplinary research. So let me stop here, and if you have any questions or any comments or any doubt, we can take it up.
Sir,
Please go ahead.
sir, I'm Dr. Jamila. Sir, I'm from education department.
Yeah.
Sir, in education, psychology, sociology, philosophy, every aspects is mingled. You mean this, sir?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So, isn't it, sir, that cross-disciplinary research?
It depends on whether, see, ഇപ്പൊ ഞാൻ നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ അഗ്രികൾച്ചറിലെ ഒരു റിസർച്ച് എടുക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അഗ്രികൾച്ചർ റിസർച്ചിൽ സ്റ്റാറ്റിസ്റ്റിക്സ് ഉപയോഗിക്കാറുണ്ട്, അഗ്രികൾച്ചർ റിസർച്ചിൽ വേറെ സബ്ജക്ട്സ് ഉപയോഗിക്കാറുണ്ട്. പക്ഷെ നമ്മൾ ആ പാർട്ടായിട്ടാണോ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നത് അതോ അതിനെ ഇന്റഗ്രേറ്റ് ചെയ്തിട്ടാണോ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നത് അതുപോലെ ഇരിക്കും. If you are actually using it in an integrated manner, where a problem is actually looked at from all multiple dimensions, single problem is looked from a multiple dimensions, that is what we call as an interdisciplinary research. അങ്ങനെയാണ് എഡ്യൂക്കേഷണൽ റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യുന്നതെങ്കിൽ യെസ്, ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് പോസിബിൾ. അല്ല, നമ്മളതിനെ ഒരു റിസർച്ച് പ്രോബ്ലത്തിനെ ഡിവൈഡ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് ചില പോർഷൻസ് ഒരു ലൈക്ക് യു സെഡ് സൈക്കോളജിയിൽ നിന്ന് എടുക്കുന്നു, ചില പോർഷൻസ് മേ ബി സോഷ്യോളജിയിൽ നിന്ന് എടുക്കുന്നു, ചില പോർഷൻസ് ആന്ത്രപ്പോളജിയിൽ നിന്ന് എടുക്കുന്നു. ഇങ്ങനെ വി ആർ ഡിവൈഡിങ് ദം and take only specific aspects to solve specific parts of a problem, then it is multidisciplinary research. It's very clear that education cannot be a unidisciplinary. It has to have a multidisciplinary approach. Interdisciplinary ആണെങ്കിൽ ഇതെല്ലാം കൂടെ ജോയിൻ ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു സാധനമായിരിക്കും. യെസ് മാഡം. ഇത് തമ്മിലൊരു ഗ്രേ ലൈനാണ്, ഇത് തമ്മിലൊരു ഒരു തിൻ ലൈനാണ് തമ്മിലുള്ള ഡിഫറൻസ്. പക്ഷെ ഈ ഡിഫറൻസിന്റെ അത്യാവശ്യം വന്നത് നേരത്തെ ഇപ്പോ ഇഫ് യു I'm sure that this was discussed earlier also, that when you develop a new theories and new knowledge, only when you treat, and most of the new problems involves multiple areas integrated together, അങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ മാത്രമേ ഇത് ഒരു ഫുൾ റിസർച്ച് ആവുന്നുള്ളൂ. ഇപ്പൊ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷനിൽ മാഡം പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ മൾട്ടി ഏരിയ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അടുത്ത ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ഇതാണ്: ഈ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷണൽ റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യുന്ന ടീമിൽ ഈ പറഞ്ഞ മേഖല, അങ്ങനെയുള്ള കോമ്പിനേഷൻസ് ആണ് നമ്മുടെ പുതിയ മേഖലകളിലേക്ക്. ഇപ്പൊ AI, artificial intelligence, can actually be looked at purely from a computer point. But when you do artificial intelligence only from a computer discipline point of view, and it is not a combination of behavioral theory, which comes from psychology, and computational theory, which comes from mathematics, it is not an interdisciplinary science. So that is a difference, a thin line. This difference is a thin line. Yeah, see, cross-disciplinarity and interdisciplinary are same actually. Multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary are the difference. Multidisciplinary is like the picture in front of you shows the problems, some part some disciplinary theory will solve, some part some disciplinary theory will solve, some part some disciplinary theory will hold. In the interdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary, you have a combination of these being solving a new problem, and sometimes it's a completely new discipline which comes. This discipline was not there earlier. Say for example, digital humanities is a discipline which was not there earlier. It's come completely as a new development as it. But some people who do digital humanities, they look at history. They only look at the history problems. Then it becomes a history discipline sort of a thing. But digital humanities involves economics, digital technologies, it involves anthropology, it involves sociology, So it involves multiple dimensions, becomes a digital humanity. It's a completely new thing. Such a discipline was not existing maybe 10 years back, right? So newer disciplines get emerged, newer theories get emerged, newer opportunities get emerged in the interdisciplinary or a cross-disciplinary model per se. So that is something which we need to make clear as such. And in our context, I'll also give this point that in our context, especially in our university research, it's not very easy for us to do this sort of interdisciplinary research, because in most cases, again, I stand corrected, you can correct me, in most cases, our doctoral committees are within our departments or our sister departments. Even if doctoral committee has got people from different areas, റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യുന്നത് ഒരു സ്റ്റുഡൻറ്റും ഒരു സൂപ്പർവൈസറും മാത്രമായിരിക്കും. ഡോക്ടർ കമ്മിറ്റി അവിടെ ഉണ്ടാവും, പക്ഷെ അവരിൽ നിന്നുള്ള, അതായത് ഒന്നിൽ കൂടുതൽ സൂപ്പർവൈസേഴ്സ് ഒരുമിച്ചിരുന്നൊരു ഒരു വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്നത് നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിൽ കുറവാണ്. ദാറ്റ് ഡസ് നോട്ട് മീൻ ദാറ്റ് പേപ്പേഴ്സ് ഡോണ്ട് ഹാവ് മൾട്ടിപ്പിൾ ഓതേഴ്സ്, പക്ഷെ മൾട്ടിപ്പിൾ ഏരിയയിൽ നിന്നുള്ളവർ ഒരുമിച്ച് വന്ന് ഒരു പ്രോബ്ലം സോൾവ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു ഇക്കോസിസ്റ്റം നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിലില്ല, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കുറവാണ്. ആ ഒരു ecosystem, creating that ecosystem is the larger purpose of this particular FDP. And in your organizations, in your colleges, you need to do that. See, it is like a choice-based credit curriculum which we have applied in our universities, right? We have introduced choice-based curriculum some time back. We asked people to take electives within our departments, right? A choice-based curriculum was not that. A choice-based curriculum is that a student in history can take 2 courses for mathematics. A student from mechanical engineering can take a course from economics. So that type of merging was not happened. We only allow more electives, that's all. So this sort of that actually again create only silo-based thinking. It does not allow you a larger based thinking. That is a context in which we are looking at. പലപ്പോഴും നമ്മുടെ റെഗുലേഷൻ ആണ് നമ്മുടെ ഈ പ്രശ്നങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നത്. ഇൻഫാക്ട് നിങ്ങളൊരു ഇന്റർനാഷണലി നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ, see for example, digital university chairman, in fact, digital university has a very different model. Sadharana university pole senate syndicate model alla njangalku we have a board of studies. Adinte chairman the background edukkanengil, he is a doctorate in operations research from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT le doctorate in operation research എന്ന് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ മാത്തമാറ്റിക്സിലെ ഒരു സാധനമാണ്. He worked in computer science department in Indian Institute of Science. He worked in management department in Indian Institute of Science. He started a company in biotechnology. And today he is actually a professor in computational biology in Indian Institute of Science. ആലോചിച്ച് നോക്കൂ, അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ ബാക്ക്ഗ്രൗണ്ട് എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് ആണ്, മാത്തമാറ്റിക്സ് ആണ്. ഇന്ന് അദ്ദേഹം വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്നത് ബയോളജി ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റിലാണ്. നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടില് ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു, ഇപ്പൊ മാഡം പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ MA ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് ഉണ്ട്, MA സോഷ്യോളജി ഉണ്ട്, പക്ഷെ PhD എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ മാത്രമേ അപ്ലൈ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുള്ളൂ. ഇതാണ് ഞാൻ തുടക്കത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞ റെഗുലേഷൻ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞത്. ഈ റെഗുലേഷൻ ആണ് മാറാൻ പോകുന്നത്. ഇത് തന്നെയായിരുന്നു നേരത്തെ സംഭവിച്ചിരുന്നത്. അതായത് ഞാനൊരു കാർ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന കമ്പനി ആണെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ കാറ് മാത്രമേ ഉണ്ടാക്കാവൂ, എനിക്ക് വേറെ ഒന്നും ഉണ്ടാക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല, വേറെ ഒന്നും ചെയ്യാൻ സമ്മതിക്കില്ല. I was not allowed, just like what we face today. This was what happening in 1990s. 1990s in ആ ബിസിനസ് ഒരു ഓപ്പൺ അപ്പ് ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ, റെഗുലേഷൻ മാറിയപ്പോൾ, lot of companies actually excelled, they changed, they moved. അതേപോലെ ഒരു ഓപ്പണിംഗ് അപ്പ് നമ്മുടെ മുമ്പിൽ അടുത്ത് തന്നെ വരും. നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിലെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയ ചലഞ്ച്, we look at research, we don't look at research process, we look at research output. True, if you are doing education research, you actually have a very deep depth in education. ആ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷന്റെ, നമ്മൾ ഡോക്ടർ ഓഫ് ഫിലോസഫി എന്നാണല്ലോ പറയുന്നത്. എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നതിന്റെ തത്വശാസ്ത്രം, ആ തത്വശാസ്ത്രത്തിന്റെ ഏറ്റവും ഡീറ്റെയിൽ വരെ ആ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ PhD എടുത്ത ഒരാൾക്ക് അയാൾക്കറിയാം. അതുകൊണ്ട് അയാൾ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷനിൽ എക്സൽ ചെയ്യും. That does not mean that he or she cannot use a research training program in another field, which is possible. അതിപ്പോ നമ്മൾ പലയിടത്തും അലോ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇപ്പൊ ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ, I spend most of my time in Indian Institute of Management. Kozhikode. In IIM and all, we look at broader disciplines. We don't look at a very narrow discipline. We look at a broader discipline. So, if marketing, if he has done a good PhD in mathematics, we'll take. So see, for example, in Digital University, I have a professor in data analytics. He is actually a doctorate in chemistry, and he does computational drug design. So ഇന്നത്തെ വേൾഡിൽ ഈ ഒരു കോമ്പിനേഷൻ വരും. ഇന്നിപ്പോൾ വരുന്നുണ്ടാവില്ലെങ്കിൽ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇന്ന് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് വിസിബിൾ അല്ലെങ്കിലും അടുത്ത് തന്നെ ആ ഒരു ചേഞ്ച് നമ്മുടെ മുമ്പിൽ എത്തും. And I think that's a way we need to start thinking about it. Of course, there are positives, negatives to that, which I think slightly beyond the scope of this discussion. Any other point? പോയിന്റ് വാലിഡ് ആണ്. ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി റിസർച്ചിനെ സ്റ്റോപ്പ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു കാരണം ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി റിസർച്ചിനല്ല നമ്മൾ പലപ്പോഴും ഒരു വാല്യൂ കൊടുക്കുന്നത് എന്ന് തന്നെയാണ്. അത് ശരിയാണ്. So since you have no other questions, let's proceed. So the objective of this cross-disciplinary research is primarily to, because the problems are not one, no, problems actually have multiple elements to that. So it can actually be solved only by people from multiple areas. So for example, in education, which Dr. Jamila spoke about, how can you actually solve a problem in education if you don't look at the psychology? You really require that. So you really require multiple elements to do many of the applied areas per se. So when you ask this question, why do you require cross-disciplinary research? Let me also ask you one more question, just for people who are here. Let me also run one more poll. Since we are all from academics, I wanted to know what is your opinion about academic research in India. So again, please log on to slido.com and you can answer this poll. Most of you said that it is okay, but needs substantial improvement. Some of you said that it's not at all good, and very few of you said it is good, and none of you said excellent or something else. റിസർച്ചിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയുമ്പോൾ റിസർച്ച് ക്ലൈമറ്റ് ഉണ്ടാക്കുക എന്നുള്ളത് വളരെ അത്യാവശ്യമാണ്. അക്കാഡമിക് ക്ലൈമറ്റ് ഉണ്ടാക്കുക എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ വലിയ അത്യാവശ്യമാണ്. സി റിസർച്ച് ക്യാൻ ഹാപ്പൻ ഓൺലി വെൻ പീപ്പിൾ ആക്ച്വലി ഷെയർ ഐഡിയാസ്, വെൻ പീപ്പിൾ ആക്ച്വലി ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ഈച്ച് അതർ. അത് അതിന്റെ ഒരു ചലഞ്ച് നേരത്തെ ഐ തിങ്ക് വൺ ഓഫ് യു സെഡ്, ഇതിന്റെ പലതും നമ്മളൊരു PhD ക്ക് വേണ്ടി മാത്രം നോക്കുന്ന ഒരു സാധനമാണ്. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഈ ക്രോസ് ഡിസിപ്ലിനറി ഇൻവോൾവ്മെന്റ് ഒന്നും നമുക്ക് പലപ്പോഴും ഉണ്ടാവാത്തതിന്റെ കാര്യം അതാണ്. So you really require a change there. That's right. So this realization is the one which drove what we call as the Navakerala Postdoctoral Fellowship by Higher Education Council. So I think other than, I mean, not even other than, I think even National Postdoctoral Fellowship is not this big. I mean, maybe I may be wrong, but what I can always confidently say that across India, Kerala must be the state having such a large, very impactful postdoctoral fellowship support. And the college which you are coming from, St. Gibbs itself, there are faculty members who have been selected, and they actually started, they have been relieved of their other work, and they have been given support to do the research. So the point is, we wanted to give 500 people postdoctoral fellowship, but we could not find. That's the sad part. We could find only, I think, 70 or 80, not more than that. In management, which I was looking at, I could get only 4 people. So the challenge is that one end, you also don't have people who really are passionate to do that, because like someone said earlier, many times people are only interested in research for getting a PhD and maybe to look at paper research. But we need to actually started enjoying it and see that this is something which is going to advance us a lot. See, if you are the only equalizer for us, whichever type of college which you are working on. Say, for example, we used to call tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 colleges for whatever reasons. So I think maybe because of funding. So you have IITs or national eminence, which has been extremely highly funded, if we call us tier 1. And let's say someone in rural area which is not at all funded is tier 3. If you look at education, the background of students who are coming, the type of resources, infrastructure, all of them, when you look at, you cannot equate them. because somebody is being paid huge amount of money, somebody is paid less amount of money. But area where you can equate is a research, because research is individual or a team, and that can actually, there is nothing stop a person from a remote area in a small village, a college, can actually publish in Nature. Nothing prevents them from doing that. So it's possible. So this is actually the biggest equalizer. When you select your career as academic, the first thing we should learn is that research is going to be the one which brings me the peer approvals. Research is the one which is going to bring me the equivalency as such. And how do I excel in that is what we need to look at. In fact, so much so that in some other part of the world, people used to call it as a teaching tax. They said teaching is a tax I have to pay to do the research, because they will be allowed to do research only if they teach so much. So they say that that's a tax I need to pay. So people actually focus more on research, finding new knowledge, making sure that see, your name as a teacher become engraved if you do research. So when someone, say maybe your friend who has gone to industry, may be earning 2 times or 3 times what you earn, and if he comes and asks, why did you stay here, why didn't you go and start working in an industry or a business enterprise, you can immediately ask back. You Google his name, you Google your name, you can see how many people recognize you globally and how many people recognize him. And this is a big motivation for a teacher, because we are primarily, our recognition comes from the type of work we do, and that is available for large number of people to view. So that is something which is a motivation for the research. I'll not go into detail because that is not the focus, and I also have only an hour more, so I'll not go into that detail. But let me look at this point which you said. I'm not answering this or that, but let me just give you some facts. So if you look at the facts, India today is actually the 3rd largest producer of scientific papers after US and China. And if you look at the fastest growing in the last 10 years or 10, 12 years, this is actually, the data is 2008 to 2018. After data is actually coming, we see that we have the fastest growth. We have actually exceeded the growth of China as far as research publications are concerned. So this is the fastest growth, because when globe annual growth rate in the national level is only 4%, we have around 10% increase year on year. China, which still hold around 20.67% of the total volume, grew at 7.81%, and US, which has got 16.54, grew at around 0.71%, but we grew at around 10%. So every year, 100 publication this year, 110 publication next year. That's the type of thing. And we are also the 6th largest producer of PhD degrees. Today, I think 2021, we are maybe 4th, I think, if my numbers are correct. So we are actually, when you look at the outputs, I'll not say outcomes, outputs are concerned, we are actually doing pretty well, especially in the last. Thanks to TechUp in engineering colleges, thanks to RUSA in arts and science colleges, thanks to other forcefully methodologies which has been adopted in by the accreditation, we have actually increased the number of scientific papers per se. But let's ask this question: why are we not in global rankings? We are none, including the institution which I studied, Indian Institute of Science, which is considered to be one of the best research institutions in the world. Even that is not in the top 300. So you have just 3 in the top 100. We have none in top 150. 7 in top 500 as far as QS is concerned. And I think in top 1000 we have MG University also now in QS. So we need to ask this question: why we don't have world-class institutions? And like Professor Praveen said earlier, the institutions like ICER, etc., are doing extremely well, but even then they have also not reached the level of an international institution yet. So when you look at the measures of success, which many times global ranking agencies do, it looks at research output and outcomes, which is citations, innovations, patents, etc. We have outputs, but do we really have outcomes? So the output versus outcome is something which we need to start looking at, especially at a context where we speak quite a bit about outcome-based education. We need to see whether there is an outcome-based research happening. So there is a quantity versus quality issue which is happening. So if you look at the number of papers published, as I said, in millions, and the type of citations in millions, India actually stands at a very poor rate of 8.23 compared to United States, which is at 17.47, or China at 9.4, or many of the other countries, UK, Germany, France, Japan, Italy, Australia, all of them are in two digits. Even Sweden has a higher figure than us. So we actually, the citation per paper, and what do you mean by citation per paper? It means the paper which we have written, someone else have also referred, someone else have also cited. So our result is actually useful for somebody else. So average citations per our paper is actually pretty low when you, even though we are number 3 in the world as far as the number of papers are concerned. China is also not that impactful as far as the papers are concerned. And Nature has come out with something called a Nature Index, which primarily looking at the top 20 countries as far as high quality papers are concerned. Again, we are number 12 in that Nature Index, even though the numbers becoming very large. So if you look at several aspects where India is actually lagging behind, other than the number of science graduates, many other areas, the type of contribution which India has made, including the investment, is actually very poor compared to the best country in that particular region per se. And why is this relevant? Because if you look at the innovativeness index today, which is a result of the research outcome, India is ranked around 60s. I think it is 64 or 65 or something like that. 67, 67, 68 is the rank for India as far as world countries are concerned. And that also shows that India is a country with a very low innovation capability when it comes to research and knowledge. So one hand we can keep on saying that we become a knowledge economy, we become a innovation economy, we become a digital economy, we wanted to become all those things. We can actually say that we wanted to lead the world, etc. But the reality is that when it comes to research outcomes, we are actually we are not at all in the top league at all. It's a long way to travel. Our industries have traveled that. We today have large chunk of industries in the top tier. Our individuals have done that. Many of our students from our institutions have actually gone and created their own niche across the world. But when it comes to research in Indian institutions, Indian universities, Indian academic institutions, which all of us sitting here are squarely responsible, we are actually we have not done that sort of a great job. So Prime Minister mentioned that next 25 years, India has to become a huge $1 trillion economy, $30 trillion economy. So if you look at maybe 10 years later or 15 years later, when we count about India, and if you see that India has not achieved what India has not achieved, don't blame on politicians, don't blame on policymakers. We should blame ourselves as teachers, faculties, academicians, because the next 15 years of India is going to be defined purely by academicians and researchers. So that is the context in which we need to actually start looking at this sort of a thing. So the question we need to ask is, where do we lag? So our lagging is happening by two aspects. One, the impact of our university research, if you measure by the citations. That is what academic community reward, right? Academic community is rewarding you, consider you as a good guy if your paper is actually being cited by many. So someone mentioned, like in the professor mentioned from um, St. Kitts mentioned that there is an incentive only for creating publications. Now, the next question we need to ask is that do we actually get support for publishing in highly cited journals? If our citations goes high, if I write seminal paper, what is the type of support I get? So that is basically what first aspect is. The second aspect is, which is more relevant for us, is there a useful for, is our university research is really useful? So usefulness of university research, which is measured by innovation and products. So if you look at both these areas, if you wanted to get more citations, it is always better your paper is an interdisciplinary paper. Why? Because the moment your paper is an interdisciplinary paper research, it will be referred by people from multiple streams. See, if I'm writing a paper exclusively on a smaller, say I'm writing an optimization paper in product layout or factory layout, only people who work in that particular area of operation research, a narrow area of operation research, only will cite my paper. Others, this paper is not relevant. But suppose I write a paper on diffusion theory in the context of, let's say, marketing. I'm actually looking at mathematical people will be looking at if I have actually contributed to develop a newer models of diffusion. People from innovation may look at it. People from marketing may look at it. People from social science may look at it. So all of them will actually cite my papers. So my citations increases, which primarily means that I will be able to influence the thought process of a lot of people around us. Citations also shows that my paper actually influences somebody else's thought process. That's why they are citing it, right? Even though many people do mechanically, the reality, the idea is that. So that is the impact of the university research if it become interdisciplinary. Same way, if you really wanted to convert your product into innovation and products, and that's what my focus will be next half an hour or so, I will focus more on that, and I will tell you why I want to focus on that. It is important that it has to be interdisciplinary. You cannot make a product, you cannot make an IP which is workable in the field, not as a paper, but something which is workable in the field, if it is not of a interdisciplinary approach. Because world don't want disciplined subject things. World want something which is as a whole. So that requires multiple elements coming together in your research program person. So 3 questions we need to answer, and that's what we will try to do in this session. 1, why do you need this? So I'm sure that all of us were so comfortable looking at going for research methodology class, learn the basic of research, start doing that, defend our thesis, may write a couple of papers, and develop, and had few more students joining us, and that life was very good. Why do you really start speaking about the need for impactful research? So why it is not impactful now? Why is it needed, and what to do? These are 3 questions we will try to answer. So we need to understand the reasons for research performance. Why we have a poor research performance? Because increase in volumes, stagnant or declining impact of citations. But more importantly, ask this question: how many of the theorems, theories, and papers which we have developed has led the practice that has actually made people to adopt it? So, for example, few years back, the researchers in Rubber Research Institute, Kottayam, developed a new breed, and that has actually completely revolutionized the rubber plantations in the state. Rubber became so popular because of that. That's basically where the practice was led by the research. But you don't have too many examples like that, right? Maybe in agriculture you may have few, but many other areas we need to ask this question. In fact, I was talking to Professor Deepak Jain. If any of you are from marketing and other areas, you will know Professor Deepak Jain. So he used to say that, he was saying that he went for a conference, he presented his research. By the time he landed back in the airport, there were 5 business leaders waiting for him because they wanted to adopt his model to develop new products. So that's basically where you are looking at the impactful research person. Deepak Jain recently was a dean of Kellogg Business School in US, and later he became a part of Indian School of Business. So that's, and graduated from Guwahati University and become one of the very, very well-known marketing professors in the world. So what I mean to say is that it is wrong to say that theory, research cannot lead practice. Globally, there are many cases where research leads practice. We need to see that can our research lead to practice. So when Kerala says that we want to become a knowledge economy, we become a knowledge economy only if knowledge we produce. Only our teachers actually create things which the industry wants and industry will use that to practice. Rather from a subservient role where we say that we are going to industry, they are not connecting with us, the industry should linkage is missing, industry should recruit our students. This conventional argument of this, leave that and ask this question that why don't industry come to me? And today I am very happy that MG University that is happening, digital university is happening, the industry is coming to us. And they are setting up shops near the university because they want to work with the faculty. So that is possible in every college, right? Even a remote college can say that I have this knowledge, I have this research, which actually can be converted into product and services. If a pharmaceutical industry want to start, come to us. There is a very interesting book recently released. I was fortunate to be a part of that release in the Kerala Literary Festival. It was written by the chairman of Federal Bank, where he actually beautifully captured how academic research leads industry practices in many companies. Like the NIT, someone mentioned how NIT's research helped setting up one of the largest steel plants in Kerala. So such instances each of us can do. That's basically where we speak about academia impacting the practice. So academia impacting the practice is possible only when you do interdisciplinary research, because industry wants total solutions. Industry don't want part. Industry cannot really look at part and do it. They really require the total solutions per se. So that's the other area of this asset. Solution. Today we speak about this. I'm sure that many universities we are setting up translational research centers. We speak about translation research as an important element. And translation research is nothing but we are using interdisciplinary research for developing new themes of focus. That's what translation research is all about. But the important thing is translation research translate our research outputs into impactful outcomes. And that requires your research output itself is aligned with the other one as such. So before we go into that, let's ask this question: why do we do research? So again, my last poll, just to wake you up, some of you who must have gone into hibernation. So let's take the last question on this. Why do we do research generally? So I have given you 4 or 5 options. So let's hear from all of you. Why do we do research based on this poll? I want an honest answer. I mean, not the theoretical answer, but real honest answer. You can see the results in front of you, so I don't have to repeat it. But like most of you, or half of you have said, mostly the research happens to get a PhD. Ideally, it should be for advancing knowledge to solve problems of a society, which the second highest, and even to develop a new stream of thinking. My honest feeling is that we do research for getting PhD, like you rightly point out. Second could be actually to get publications, because honestly, we can get. We are compelled to do publications today, so there are a large number of people do that. The other 3 aspects where you advance the knowledge to solve problems of the society, develop innovative product services, or new stream of thinking. Let's reflect and ask this question: how many of the research happening in our institutions, our universities, our own, is actually contributing to that? If it is, it's great. It's actually will be very useful. If it is not, then we need to start asking the question why it is not happening. And incidentally, when you get the PhD also, you can do the other things. Even though primary motivation could be to get a PhD or get publications, the other things also is possible, of which the interdisciplinary research is needed when you really look at develop a new stream of thinking, or to develop innovative products, or to advance in knowledge. All the three things require an interdisciplinary approach or a cross-disciplinary approach per se. Great. So question we need to ask is, why do we to make research impactful? Reason is, if you look at whichever be the type of research which we do, whether it's a social science research, whether it is basic science research, whether it is applied science research, which is technology research, we know that there are technologies which created the problems, or technology which is to be developed to address the problems. So, for example, faster development of industrialization in through various industrial revolution has created a huge amount of marginalization. It has created sociological divide in the society. It has created economic divide in the society, which actually become a rich area for people to do research on that. They need to start asking the question that, can we actually look at methodologies to be developed to address inclusive growth? How can marginalization of some sections of the society, including the gender imbalance which happened in the part of the second industrial revolution, can that be addressed? Or what could be the way in which you can actually make a amends to that? What could so there are problems in the society which is created because of the technology. There are problems in the society which has been solved using the technology. So both this happened. Say, for example, people were not able to move from one place to another place, or people used to take huge amount of time to move a product from one area to another area. The research in steam engines, James Watt, where he actually created a method to harness the steam energy, has actually replaced the replaced animal muscles, human muscles to mechanical muscles, which actually helped solve a large problems of the society, right? Because you may have poverty in today. There is an earthquake in Africa, and they are being deprived of basic necessities. It's not very difficult for us to take material from another part of the world and ship over there, which was it was a problem earlier. When something happens in one place, it takes years, months to ship supplies to that area. So the research in that area solved that issue. So technology has to go two phases. One phase, it creates new problems, which are rich grounds for research. Most of the social science research can happen in that space. Technology also brings in new dimensions of social interactions and related areas. It marginalizes, it enhances. All these are beautiful areas of research. It also solves several problems, which also require solutions development per se. But what is important is that whatever be the type of technology, be it the earlier steam engines, first industrial revolution, be it the second industrial revolution, the automobile, be it the third industrial revolution, computers, or be it the fourth industrial revolution, which is done by the digital technologies like AI, big data, blockchain, nanos, etc. All of them are actually going to address this, and they throw in a large number of problems which people need to solve, people need to address, and they can bring out newer theories and procedures and new knowledge per se. But what is observable from this graph, the quantitative technology cycle graph, which you have shown here, is that the time period of the technology cycle is shrinking over the period. It used to take first industrial revolution close to around 180 or 200 years, second industrial revolution around 100 years to last. Third industrial revolution was only 50 years or 60 years. The fourth industrial revolution only maybe 10 years or 20 years. So when a very fast period change is happening, both these sides ramifications are there. And such ramifications can be solved only if our research addresses them as a whole as such. So that is a challenge. And the fourth industrial revolution is also characterized by fusing physical, digital, and biological worlds to come out with completely new theories, axioms, methodologies, and knowledge. It was not anymore one domain. You need to combine this domain. See, for example, medicine was conventionally believed only as a domain of biological scientists, right? But look at the vaccine development this year. The vaccine development was an interdisciplinary research where the people from computational space, people from pharmaceutical space, people from biological space, people from biomedical space, all of them came together and come out with a newer methods of development of vaccine. Perhaps many of us today, including me and you, are alive and we are able to speak like this today only because that interdisciplinary research happened. If that has not happened, the vaccine should have been delayed, and many people in the earth may not be there today because they must have been vanished, right? They could have been dead because of the deadly virus. But how interdisciplinary research actually helped us to live is a classic example. You have seen newer methods of the treatment, the gene editing, which is a combination of biological and computational methods. So you are coming out with a completely new model. It's not saying that you are applying this to here. No, you are completely coming out with a new model where you are start using it. So this brings in newer exponential technologies and emergence of newer disciplines. And that is an area where the interdisciplinary, close-disciplinary research speaks about. So if India has to lead on this, we need to be really look at this concept of driving short life cycles of technology, which brings in fast change. Along with that, it also brings in issues. See, Dr. Jamila spoke some time back that she works in education. Education is an area which is actually getting challenged by the fast changes in technology. But fast changes in technology cannot be solved by bringing more technological solutions alone. You start looking at much more deeper aspects of education, right? But much more deeper aspects of knowledge. Maybe we may have to go back to the learning theories and start looking at whether the learning theory models need re-look at it. How do we actually technology impacts on that? So it is not technology being you develop another immersive learning or another Byju's solution. That is not what we call as a research. What we need to look at is when in a world where people are much more digital aware, is the basic learning theory models need a relook at it. How do I combine this? That is interdisciplinary research. So such things happen, and that also gives an opportunity because for several years now, education institutions across the world, more so in developing world, were a follower. We are only doing what industry scraps. We never actually led the practice. And that follower to leader is another area which is a challenge to all of us as who are into the field of academics per se. Community regard you if your paper is well cited, right? Like citations increase. So your paper has actually created a huge amount of changes in, say, let's assume that you work on an area of pollution control and you developed a newer methodology for managing waste. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, that has not been cited by many, but it has actually changed a lot of cities to model or take this data and change their waste management system. So there is a huge impact, but no impact in the academic as such. So this is a classic case what you said. Now, as an academic, we should be clear that we need both, right? We need to, our personal repute comes when our peers recognizes us. അവര് മെഷർ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യം എപ്പോഴും അവർ മെഷർ ചെയ്യുന്ന കാര്യം അതൊരു നോളജിന് കോൺട്രിബ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടോ എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. ഡിഡ് വി അഡ്വാൻസ് ഇൻ നോളജ് എന്നാണ്. നോളജിന് അഡ്വാൻസ് ചെയ്യണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അത് എക്സിസ്റ്റിംഗ് നോളജുമായിട്ട് ലിങ്ക് ചെയ്യണം. അതിനാണല്ലോ നമ്മൾ റിസർച്ച് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ വി സ്പീക്ക് ആസ് റിസർച്ച്, റൈറ്റ്? നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യം ഇന്നത്തെ നോളജിനെ എങ്ങനെ അഡ്വാൻസ് ചെയ്തു, ഇതാണ് നമ്മൾ റിസർച്ചിൽ കൂടെ കാണിക്കുന്നത്. അതാണ് നമ്മുടെ പിയേഴ്സ്, നോളജ് കീപ്പേഴ്സ് നോക്കുന്നത്. ഒരു ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിക്ക് അത് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിംഗ് അല്ല. ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിക്ക് ഇപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ കൊടുക്കുന്ന സൊല്യൂഷൻ 10 പേപ്പർ 100 പേപ്പർ റെഫർ ചെയ്തിട്ടാണോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ 200 പേപ്പർ റെഫർ ചെയ്തിട്ടാണോ അതുമായിട്ട് ലിങ്ക് ചെയ്തിട്ടോ, ദേ ആർ നോട്ട് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റഡ് ഇൻ ദാറ്റ്. വാട്ട് ദേ ആർ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റഡ് ഈസ് നിങ്ങൾ കൊടുക്കുന്ന സാധനം അപ്ലൈ ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി ഐ എം സ്പീക്കിംഗ് അബൌട്ട് ഈവൻ പബ്ലിക് ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷൻസ് ലൈക്ക് ലോക്കൽ സെൽഫ് ഗവൺമെന്റ്സോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇൻഡിവിജ്വൽസോ ഒക്കെ ഞാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. യൂസ് എ ബ്രോഡർ ടേം ആസ് ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി. So what they want is whether they should be impactful or not. Now, this need not be contradictory. You can still have a well-cited article. At the same time, you can make impact. I'll give you an example. Sometime back in 2003, we Can you mute, please? Can you mute, please?
Akshara S, please mute your microphone. Akshara S.
Shahina.
Akshara S.
ഇത് ഷാഹിനയുടെ വീട്ടിലെ
Okay, so Akshara is finally muted. Fine. So, coming back, so what I meant to say, see, we were doing a project for solving this sometime back, so 30 years back. We were trying to solve a problem for solving a milk transportation in a large, in a rural setting in Uttar
ഒരു
Pradesh.
മീറ്റിംഗിലെ ഞാൻ അറിയാതെ
So this has actually helped quite a bit on cooperative societies in that region because their milk loss has come down. So there is an impact. But what is more important for me as an academic was that we developed some models, newer models, which actually become one of the well-cited paper in optimization theory. It actually get published in one of the tier 1 Q1 journal. And it is not the entire problem, but a part of the problem where we developed a newer algorithm for solving a very large scale optimization problem, because I work in that area, large scale optimization problems. It came into the publication space. Appo nerthe enikku Jamila madam aanu choichenu thonu, the question that citations ഉണ്ട് എന്നതുകൊണ്ട് അത് ഇമ്പാക്ട്ഫുൾ ആവാതിരിക്കണമെന്നില്ല. അതുപോലെ ഇമ്പാക്ട്ഫുൾ ആയതുകൊണ്ട് നമുക്ക് അത് ജേർണൽ പബ്ലിക്കേഷൻ ആവാതിരിക്കണമെന്നുമില്ല. The real thing is, can we actually make both, best of both worlds? Can we actually have an impactful publication at the same time impactful research output, which can also be an impactful publication? So we will have best of both worlds. അതായിരിക്കും നമ്മൾ ട്രൈ ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്. And this is more so because economy today is actually moving from what we call as factor based economy എന്ന് നമ്മൾ പറയുന്നത്. അതായത് നമുക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാവുന്നതാണ് എന്താ ഫാക്ടർ ബേസ്ഡ് എക്കോണമി. നമ്മുടെ കോളേജുകളിൽ നിന്ന് പാസ് ഔട്ട് ആവുന്ന സ്റ്റുഡൻസ് എടുക്കുന്ന ജോലി അവർ പഠിച്ചതുമായിട്ട് ഒരു ബന്ധമില്ലാത്തതാവാം. So for example, a mechanical engineer will go and start working as an LD clerk in secretariat. Now, there is no link between what he learned and what he's doing. Or a person from history background is actually working in a business establishment, in maybe doing commercial activities. അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെയുള്ളതാണ് നമ്മൾ ഫാക്ടർ ബേസ്ഡ് എക്കോണമി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. അവിടെ ഒരു ഇൻഡിവിജ്വലിന്റെ കേപ്പബിലിറ്റിയോ നോളജിനെയോ അല്ല, അയാളുടെ ഫാക്ടേഴ്സ് ഓഫ് പ്രൊഡക്ഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, അതായത് basic physical abilities and all are actually being rewarded. From that, we need to move to an innovation driven stage. When we want to move, this is primarily an economic model which was available, which says that when economic development has to increase, the entrepreneurship moves from factor based to innovation driven stage. For doing that, we really look at creation of newer solutions. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മുടെ ഈ IP based entrepreneurship എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് തന്നെ എങ്ങനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന ഇന്റലക്ച്വൽ പ്രോപ്പർട്ടീസ്, നമ്മൾ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന ഔട്ട്കമ്മിനെ അതിനെ എങ്ങനെ നമുക്ക് പ്രൊഡക്റ്റ് ആൻഡ് സർവീസുകളാക്കാം എങ്ങനെ അതിനെ സൊസൈറ്റിക്ക് ഇമ്പാക്ട്ഫുൾ ആക്കാം എന്നതാണ്. ദാറ്റ്സ് ബേസിക്കലി വേർ we look at newer enterprises which can innovate or which can invent. നമ്മുടെ ലാബുകളിലും നമ്മുടെ ഇവിടെ ഇപ്പോൾ ചില സോഷ്യൽ സയന്റിസ്റ്റുകൾ ആലോചിക്കുന്നുണ്ടാവും ഞങ്ങൾ ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് എങ്ങനെ ഇത് ഇമ്പാക്ട്ഫുൾ ആവുന്നു എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. See, social scientists actually create new ways of managing organizations, new ways of addressing productivity of people. ഇതെല്ലാം സോഷ്യൽ സയന്റിസ്റ്റുകൾ ചെയ്യുന്നതാണ്. അത് ഒരുപക്ഷെ നമ്മൾ ഇപ്പോൾ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ മേഖലയിൽ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരാൾ ഒരുപക്ഷെ ഇൻക്ലൂഷനെ കുറിച്ചായിരിക്കും റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഹൗ ഡു വി ആക്ച്വലി മേക്ക് inclusion better for students with learning disabilities. Now, look at this. This actually can go very nicely into journal publications. But at the same time, if this has this model which she or he developed is really can be applied in the field, we can actually unlock potential of a large number of people who are having learning disabilities or who are challenged. അപ്പോൾ ഇതൊരു സിമ്പിൾ എക്സാമ്പിൾ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു. സോ എവറി റിസർച്ച്, വെദർ യു ആർ ഡൂയിങ് ഇറ്റ് ഇൻ ആർട്സ്, സയൻസ്, കൊമേഴ്സ്, social science, any of this area, there is always an applicability to the society. ആ ആപ്ലിക്കബിലിറ്റി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ചിലപ്പോൾ സൊസൈറ്റിയുടെ തിങ്കിങ് പ്രോസസ്സ് മാറ്റുന്നതാവാം, ചിലപ്പോൾ അതിന് ഒരു പുതിയ സൊല്യൂഷൻ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നതാവാം, or it can even create an advancement of knowledge ആവാം, ഏതും ആവാം. But there is always an application. But that is something which we need to look at when we are looking at a larger scope of research per se. So this is relevant because if you take the words of NIP and its objective of NEP, it says that it intends to transform India sustainably into an inclusive and a vibrant knowledge society by providing quality education to all, thereby making India a global superpower. So inclusive and vibrant knowledge society is something which Kerala always espouses, right? That's the model which we always used to speak about. And India wanted to be a global superpower, which can happen only when we have these three things. We need well-rounded, thoughtful individuals. So individuals cannot think in silos. I'll come back to that. Strong knowledge base, and you need to create world-class institutions. And if you look at the global models of world-class institutions, an institution becomes world-class when it has got three elements. It has got students, teaching staff, researchers who are impactful globally. It has got academic freedom. It has got resources. Now, this comes from research output, influential graduates, and technology transfer. Now, if you look at our institutions, we see that we are very poor in technology transfer. We are very poor even in the research outcomes as such. Maybe we are maybe good at graduates because many of our graduates from our systems have actually gone and developed their enterprises. പക്ഷെ ഇവിടെ ഒരു ചലഞ്ച് വന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. എന്താണ്? നമ്മുടെ ഗ്രാജുവേറ്റ്സ് ഇവിടെ അല്ല കോൺട്രിബ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. കാരണം ഇവിടെ നമുക്ക് വ്യവസായമോ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റികൾക്ക് വ്യവസായം വളർത്താൻ പറ്റിയിട്ടില്ല, യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റികൾക്ക് സൊസൈറ്റിയുടെ ഇഷ്യൂകൾ സോൾവ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റിയിട്ടില്ല. Instead, we must have made people who are really good, who went and solved the problems of other part of the world person. അപ്പൊ ഇത് രണ്ടും നമ്മുടെ അടുത്ത അജണ്ടയിലെ വളരെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് എലിമെന്റ് ആണ്. Just like companies have vanished after 1990s because they did not change, universities, institutions will vanish if they don't change or they focus on some of these aspects. That is something which we need to be. And for that, we need two aspects: research leadership and institutional transformation. Since we have limited time, I'll only speak about research leadership. I'll not speak about institutional transformation. And of course, this FDP is also not for that. So we will speak more on research leadership and look at how do we actually translate research studies into practice. Now, ഇവിടെ നമ്മൾ പലപ്പോഴും ആലോചിക്കാത്തൊരു കാര്യമാണ്, നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യുന്ന റിസർച്ച് സ്കെയിലബിൾ ആയിട്ട് ആപ്ലിക്കേഷൻസ് ആക്കുക. വാട്ട് ദേ കോൾ as bench to bed. മെഡിക്കലിലാണ് പറയുന്നത്, ബെഞ്ചിൽ ചെയ്യുന്ന റിസർച്ച് എങ്ങനെ ബെഡിലേക്ക് എത്തുന്നു. കാര്യം ഒരു വാക്സിൻ ഡെവലപ്പ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് ഒരു ലാബിലെ ബെഞ്ചിലാണ്. അത് ബെഡിൽ കിടക്കുന്ന ഒരു പേഷ്യന്റിന്റെ അടുത്ത് എത്തിയാൽ മാത്രമേ അതിന് യൂസ് ഉള്ളൂ. Otherwise, it becomes nice paper. See, for example, We have people who are doing research, nice papers, but it doesn't translate to the end guy. So there is a need for translating from the bench to bed, or bench to field, bench to the society. So that translation is the important thing. And this is a issue in what we call as a disciplinary research. And that disciplinary research is where you focus on one discipline and doing it. So let's ask this question, that why disciplinary research is required. നമുക്ക് രണ്ട് തരം റിസർച്ച് ആണുള്ളത്. ഒന്ന് ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ റിസർച്ച്. ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ റിസർച്ച് ഈസ് സംതിങ് വെയർ യു ബ്രിങ് ഇൻ ന്യൂവർ തിയറീസ്, നോളജ്, വിച്ച് ആർ ദ ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ ട്രേറ്റ്സ്. ഇപ്പോൾ ഫിസിക്സിൽ നമ്മൾ എടുക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ നമ്മുടെ വെരി ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ ലോസ് ഓഫ് മോഷൻ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ദി ഐൻസ്റ്റീൻ്റെ E is equal to mc squared. These are all come out from fundamental research, right? Maybe, but look at the research which we do, be it for PhD, be it for anything. How many of them are really fundamental? In fact, most of them are not. In fact, what we do are all applied research. അപ്പോൾ ഇതിലൊരു വ്യത്യാസമുണ്ട്. ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ റിസർച്ചിൽ നമ്മളൊരു ചെറിയ കാര്യത്തിനെ വളരെ ഫോക്കസ്ഡ് ആയിട്ട് വളരെ 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 ഡെപ്തിൽ പോയിട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നതാണ്. We are at a very small stage and we are going into the depth of it. But that happens only in a very, very small percentage of places. Maybe ICER, which one of our friends mentioned, some areas you may be doing a fundamental research. But in most of the other cases, we are actually doing what we call as an applied research. പക്ഷെ ഇവിടെ അപ്ലൈഡ് റിസർച്ച് എങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യുന്നത്, അവിടെ we need to actually think about what I call as an elephant story. So if you look at this picture, where you see an elephant and a rat, and the rat claims that it can eat the elephant. അപ്പൊ ഇത്ര ചെറിയൊരു റാറ്റിന് ഒരു എലിഫന്റിനെ തിന്നാൻ കഴിയുമോ എന്ന ചോദ്യമാണ് നമ്മൾ റാറ്റിനോട് ചോദിക്കുന്നത്. റാറ്റ് ക്ലെയിംസ് ദാറ്റ് എനിക്ക് ഈ എലിഫന്റിനെ തിന്നാൻ കഴിയും. ഇപ്പോൾ റാറ്റിന്റെ ആൻസർ ഇതാണ്: ഹൂ സേസ് എലിഫന്റ് ഈസ് ബിഗ്? ഐ ഡോണ്ട് ഈറ്റ് ദ എൻറ്റയർ എലിഫന്റ്. ഞാൻ ഒരു സമയത്ത് എലിഫന്റിന്റെ ഒരു ചെറിയ പീസ് മാത്രമേ കഴിക്കുള്ളൂ. ഞാൻ വാലിന്റെ ഒരു കഷ്ണം മുറിക്കും, അത് കഴിക്കും. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞ് അങ്ങനെ ഞാൻ ചെറിയ ചെറിയ പീസായിട്ട് മുറിച്ച് എലിഫന്റിനെ കഴിക്കും. സോ മേ ബി ഐ വിൽ ടേക്ക് ഇയേഴ്സ്, but I will eat the entire elephant by taking small pieces of the elephant. Now, tell me, what is wrong in this argument of rat? ഈ റാറ്റിന്റെ ഈ ആർഗ്യുമെന്റിന് എന്താ തെറ്റ്? അതായത് ഇത്രയും വലിയ ഒരു എലിഫന്റിനെ പോലും കുഞ്ഞു കുഞ്ഞു പീസാക്കുമ്പോൾ റാറ്റിന് സോൾവ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. Because rat is not eating the entire elephant, it solves only a small piece of elephants. At one point of time, it's only a small piece. So this is what rat communicates. Rat tells us that that's the way it is going to eat. So how do you counter it? How do you say that that argument is wrong?
Time taken to consume may not be justifiable.
No, this is okay. Assume that rat has got infinite amount of time. Time നമ്മൾക്ക് കൺസ്റ്റന്റ് ആണെന്ന് വെക്കില്ല. അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിലോ?
ആ ടൈം ആകുമ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് എലിഫന്റിന്റെ ബോഡി ചീത്ത ആവില്ലേ? Not able to consume.
Rat elephant. See, I never said that it's a dead elephant. That you made an assumption.
Oh, okay.
ചത്ത എലിഫന്റ് ആണെന്ന് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടില്ല. I said it's a live elephant, right? അപ്പൊ പിന്നെ കേടാവില്ലല്ലോ. അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിലോ?
അപ്പൊ അങ്ങനെ അത് റീജനറേഷൻ ഉണ്ടാവില്ലേ?
Okay, even if regeneration ഉണ്ടായ പോലും, let us assume that it eats most of the part of the elephant, not fully. നമ്മളെ റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഒരു പ്രോബ്ലം 100% സോൾവ് ചെയ്യാറില്ലല്ലോ. നമ്മൾ 90% അല്ലേ സോൾവ് ചെയ്യാറുള്ളൂ. So that even 90% of elephant I can eat. Yes, someone else said something. Yes.
രാമയും മുയലും പന്തയം വെച്ചപ്പോ വിജയിച്ച പോലൊരു സംഭവം
കഥയാണല്ലേ ഇത്? പക്ഷേ എന്താ തെറ്റെന്താണ് ഇതിലെ പ്രശ്നം? എന്താണ്? ഇൻസിഡന്റ്ലി നമ്മളെല്ലാം ചെയ്യുന്നതാണ്. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഈ കാര്യം ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത്. ഇതിന് കുഴപ്പമെന്ന് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാല് എലിഫന്റ് ഈ റാറ്റ് ഒരു അസംഷൻ എടുക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. എന്താണ്? റാറ്റ് ആനയുടെ വാലിലെ ഒരു കഷ്ണം മുറിക്കുമ്പോ ആനയുടെ മറ്റു ഭാഗങ്ങളൊന്നും അതിന് റിയാക്ട് ചെയ്യില്ല എന്ന്. അങ്ങനെയാണോ ഉണ്ടാവാറുള്ളത്? So if rat cuts a small piece of elephant, let's say its tail, what will elephant do? Elephant's trunk will react, അല്ലേ? എലിഫന്റ് അപ്പം തന്നെ തുമ്പിക്കൈ എടുത്ത് റാറ്റിനെ പിടിച്ച് എറിയുക ചെയ്യാൻ പോകുന്നത്. It will not even allow rat to cut it, because the moment one portion is cut, the other part is going to really react to that. ഇതാണ് ശരിക്കും സിസ്റ്റങ്ങളിൽ നടക്കുന്നത്. ഒരു സിസ്റ്റത്തിൽ നമ്മൾ ഒരു പാർട്ടിൽ നമ്മൾ ഒരു സൊല്യൂഷൻ ഉണ്ടാക്കാൻ നോക്കിയാൽ another part of a system will react, and that system will primarily negate it. നമ്മൾ പക്ഷേ നമ്മുടെ റിസർച്ച് പ്രോസസ് ഒന്ന് ആലോചിച്ച് നോക്കൂ. ദ വേ വി ഡു റിസർച്ച് പ്രോസസ്, നമ്മൾ എന്താ ചെയ്യാറുള്ളത്? whenever we have a big problem, we divide them into parts and solve the parts. അത് റാറ്റ് ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ അതിനെ കളിയാക്കി. പക്ഷെ നമ്മൾ റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ, ഇൻഫാക്ട് മെനി ടൈംസ് യുവർ advisor or your research committee will say that, why do you want to solve the entire problem? Take a small portion of the problem and solve in depth. അങ്ങനെ ആയിരിക്കും നിങ്ങളുടെ പല റിസർച്ച് സൂപ്പർവൈസേഴ്സും റിസർച്ചും പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുള്ളത്. അത് തന്നെയാണ് ആ പാവർ റാറ്റും ചെയ്യാൻ നോക്കിയത്. പക്ഷേ ആസ് റാറ്റ് ഫെയിൽസ്, the same thing our research also fails, because if you don't build system, we build a system out of subsystems and then without ignoring the relationship between them. Just like rat did not consider between the relationship between the trunk and the tail, we also do not consider that, and structure that interlinks the parts related the behavior. അപ്പൊ ഇവിടെ ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ഉണ്ട്, ഇങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യണം എന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ എന്ത് ചെയ്യണം? പല ഏരിയയിലുള്ളവർ ഒരുമിച്ച് വരണം. ഈ ഒരാള് അതിന്റെ ട്രങ്ക് പിടിക്കണം, ഒരാൾ അതിന്റെ കാല് പിടിക്കണം, വേറൊരാള് അതിന്റെ ബോഡി പിടിക്കണം, എന്നാൽ മാത്രമേ ഇത് പോസിബിൾ ആവുള്ളൂ. Same way, in most of the problems which we do, this sort of model, which we call as reductionism, this is what we have been taught from very, very small age onwards. In most of the research methodology courses, we teach them reductionism. Reductionism many times make beautiful papers, but it will never make impact. ഇമ്പാക്റ്റ് ഉണ്ടാക്കണം എന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, അതായത് അതിനൊരു സൊസൈറ്റൽ ഇമ്പാക്റ്റ് ഉണ്ടാക്കണം എന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, you need to see the elephant as a whole. You cannot see only a portion. ഒരു ചെറിയ പോർഷൻ മാത്രം എടുത്തിട്ട് ഒരു റിസർച്ച് പ്രോബ്ലം സോൾവ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ we are missing the larger context. ആ ലാർജർ കോണ്ടെക്സ്റ്റ് ഇംപ്ലിമെന്റ് ചെയ്താലേ അത് ട്രൂ ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി ആവുള്ളൂ. എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി വേണമെന്ന് പറയുന്നത്? അതുകൊണ്ടാണ്. ഇപ്പോൾ നേരത്തെ ജമീല മാഡം പറഞ്ഞു, അതായത് എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് സോഷ്യോളജിയാണ്, സൈക്കോളജിയാണ്, ലേണിംഗ് തിയറിയാണ്, ആന്ത്രോപോളജി ആണെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു സോഷ്യോളജിസ്റ്റിന് മാത്രം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു സൈക്കോളജിസ്റ്റിന് മാത്രം ഒരിക്കലും എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ എന്നുള്ള എലിഫന്റിനെ മുഴുവനായിട്ട് കിട്ടില്ല. The person will see only a portion of it. If you really wanted to see the elephant as a whole, multiple people has to come together and then start doing it. That is primarily what we do it. Because if you don't do it, we have this paradox today. എന്താ പാരഡോക്സ്? നമ്മുടെ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റികളിലും നമ്മുടെ കോളേജുകളിലും ടണ്ണ് കണക്കിന് റിസർച്ച് ഉണ്ടാക്കിയെടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്, റിസർച്ച് പേപ്പേഴ്സ് ഉണ്ട്. നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ India has produced a large number of research papers, research PhDs. But how many of those PhDs really made difference in the world? In fact, earlier principal scientific advisor to Prime Minister used to say that there is a dark fiber. നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിൽ ഡാർക്ക് ഫൈബർ കിടക്കുകയാണ്. അതൊന്നും ലൈറ്റപ്പ് അല്ല. റിസർച്ച് എല്ലാം ഡാർക്ക് ഫൈബർ ആയിട്ട് കിടക്കുകയാണ്. അതിനെ ഒന്ന് ലൈറ്റപ്പ് ചെയ്യാമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ lot of solutions can actually happen. Many of us, this is again more relevant in the context of science research, but even in the context of social science also it is valid. In science research, we call it as technology readiness level എന്നൊരു നോം ഉണ്ട്. ടെക്നോളജി റെഡിനെസ് ലെവൽ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഒരു ടെക്നോളജി എത്രമാത്രം ഒരു ആക്ച്വൽ പ്രോബ്ലത്തിനെ സോൾവ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് റെഡി ആണെന്നുള്ളതാണ്. നമ്മുടെ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റികളിലും നമ്മുടെ കോളേജുകളിലും ഉണ്ടാകുന്നത് ടെക്നോളജി റെഡിനെസ് ലെവൽ 1 or 2 ആയിരിക്കും. What industry want is it requires 8 or 9. So look at the gap. There's a huge gap. ഈ ഗ്യാപ്പ് ട്രാവൽ ചെയ്യണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതിനൊരു ഒരു എക്സാമ്പിൾ പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, നിങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നത്, നമ്മൾ കോളേജുകളിൽ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന, നമുക്കൊരു somebody asked you to make a fast moving from one end to another place. What we make is something like this. What is needed by the industry is something like this. അതായത് നമ്മൾ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നത് ഈ ഒരു 2 ടയർ വെച്ചിട്ടൊരു തടിയാണെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് വേണ്ടത് ഒരു കാറാണ്. ഒരു തടിയിൽ നിന്ന് കാറിലേക്ക് പോകുമ്പോൾ പ്രിൻസിപ്പിൾസ് റിമൈൻ ദി സെയിം, but there are a lot of other things which we need to do it. There may be a designer which is required. There is a person who know how to aesthetics is important. There may be an industrial scientist, industrial engineer who know how to the ergonomics which is required. So a lot of people have to come together and develop a car. ആ ട്രാൻസിഷനാണ് നമുക്ക് ഇന്ന് നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിൽ വേണ്ടത്. So from a basic research to mass production, you really require engineering research, in this case, feasibility studies, product engineering, testing, certification, etc. So this transition is something which we really require. ഇതൊന്നും ഇല്ലാതെ ട്രാൻസ്ലേഷൻ റിസർച്ച് സെന്റർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഞാൻ ഇന്ന് ചെയ്യുന്നതിനകത്ത് കുറച്ച് എക്യുപ്മെന്റ് കൂടെ മേടിച്ചിട്ട് ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയുടെ MOE ചെയ്ത് ചെയ്യുക എന്ന് പറയുന്നതല്ല ട്രാൻസ്ലേഷൻ റിസർച്ച്. Translation research is something where we are actually completely transforming the research into something which is getting into the mass production per se, or finally. Because as I said, you really require technology transfer levels at various levels into the final level per se. And നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിൽ നോക്കിയാൽ നമ്മളെ ബേസിക് റിസർച്ച് ആണെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് ബേസിക് റിസർച്ച് എന്ന് പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ല. ഈവൻ ബേസിക് അപ്ലൈഡ് റിസർച്ച് ഇസ് എ ഹ്യൂജ് എലിമെന്റ് of which can translate into commercial possibilities is very small. So if this link has to be much more stronger, the commercial possibilities നെയും ബേസിക് റിസർച്ചിന്റെ സർക്കിൾ പോലെ വലുതാക്കണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, പ്രൊഡക്റ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നതും അതുപോലെ വലുതാക്കണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, we really require the research have to be more conducive to translation through cross-disciplinary approach. So cross-disciplinary approachന്റെ ഏറ്റവും നമ്മൾ ഓൾറെഡി ഒരു കാര്യം പറഞ്ഞു, വളരെ ഫാസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് പോകുന്നു. അതുകൊണ്ട് പുതിയ സൊല്യൂഷൻസ് ഉണ്ടാക്കണം, വളരെ ഫാസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ഉണ്ടാക്കണം. പല ഏരിയയിലുള്ള നോളജ് ഒരുമിച്ച് കൊണ്ടുവന്ന് പുതിയ ഡിസിപ്ലിൻസ് ഉണ്ടാക്കണം. അതോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ നമ്മൾ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന അപ്ലൈഡ് റിസർച്ചിനെ പ്രാക്ടിക്കൽ ആക്കണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിലും യു റിയലി റിക്വയർ ക്രോസ് ഡിസിപ്ലിനറി അപ്രോച്ച് ആസ് സച്ച്. So before I go into the last piece of the discussion, how do we do it and what are the challenges to that? If you have any questions or comments, we can take it up. Any questions? Anyone? Any questions or any comments or any doubts?
ഒരു കമന്റ് പറയാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുകയാണ്.
പറഞ്ഞോളൂ.
പിന്നെ ഇന്ത്യൻ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ പഠിച്ച സ്റ്റുഡൻസിന് പിന്നെ പ്രോപ്പറായിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ കിട്ടണമെങ്കിൽ അവർ ഫോറിൻ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിക്ക് പോകുന്ന പോലെ തന്നെ there is insufficient interaction between the university research departments on one sideband business establishment. അതായിരിക്കും അതും കൂടെ വേണമെന്നുള്ളതാണ് എൻ്റെ അഭിപ്രായം.
തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും അതാണ് ഞാൻ തുടക്കത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞ മാഡം. അത് എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് അത് വരാത്തത് എന്നുള്ളതാണ് നമ്മൾ ആലോചിക്കേണ്ടത്, അല്ലേ? എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് അത് വരാത്തത്? അത് വരാത്തതിന്റെ ഒരു കാരണം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, നമ്മൾ പല ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷൻസും ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി എടുത്ത് പോകുന്നത് ഒരു സബ്സർവിയൻ മോഡലിലാണ്. നമ്മളെ എല്ലാ ഇന്ററാക്ഷൻ നമ്മുടെ കോളേജുകളിൽ നിന്ന് ആലോചിച്ച് നോക്കും. നമ്മളെ കോളേജുകൾ ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയിൽ പോയിട്ട് എന്താ പറയുന്നത്? ഞങ്ങളുടെ കുട്ടികൾക്ക് ഇന്റേൺഷിപ്പ് കൊടുക്കണം, നിങ്ങൾ സപ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്യണം എന്ന് പറയുന്നതല്ലാതെ നമ്മൾ എത്ര തവണ ഒരു ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയോട് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്, നിങ്ങൾക്കുള്ള പ്രോബ്ലംസ് ഞങ്ങൾ സോൾവ് ചെയ്ത് തരാം എന്ന് നമ്മൾ പറയുന്നുണ്ടോ? അതെന്തുകൊണ്ട് നമുക്ക് പറയാൻ കഴിയുന്നില്ല? ഓക്കെ, അതാണ് ഇപ്പോൾ ശരി. MG യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ ഐ തിങ്ക് ദേ ഹാവ് ഡൺ ദാറ്റ്. MG യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി ഐ തിങ്ക് ഇൻക്യുബേഷൻ സെന്റർ ഹാസ് ഡൺ ദാറ്റ്. ഡിജിറ്റൽ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ വി ഹാവ് ഡൺ ദാറ്റ്. അപ്പോൾ അതാണ് നമ്മുടെ ഫസ്റ്റ് പോയിന്റ്. രണ്ടാമത്തത്, നമ്മൾ ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയെ അക്കാഡമിക്സ് ഒരു സെക്കൻഡ് ലെയർ ആണെന്നും ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി എന്തോ വലുതാണെന്നുള്ളൊരു ധാരണയാണ് നമുക്ക് പലർക്കും ഉള്ളത്. ദാറ്റ്സ് നോട്ട് ട്രൂ. ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി ഓൾസോ ഹാസ് ഗോട്ട് ഇറ്റ്സ് ഓൺ ഇഷ്യൂസ്, ഇറ്റ്സ് ഓൺ ചലഞ്ചസ്. പക്ഷേ അവർക്ക് വേണ്ടത് ഇമ്മീഡിയറ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള സൊല്യൂഷനുകളാണ്. അവർക്ക് ഒരുപാട് സമയം വെയിറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല. ദേ വാണ്ടഡ് ഇമ്മീഡിയറ്റ് സൊല്യൂഷൻസ്. അപ്പൊ നമ്മളൊരു ഒരു റിസർച്ച് പോയിന്റ് ഓഫ് വ്യൂയില് സൊല്യൂഷൻസ് സമയത്ത് ഡെലിവർ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല എന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ദെൻ ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി ഇസ് നോട്ട് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റഡ് ഇൻ ദാറ്റ്. പിന്നെ പലപ്പോഴും നമ്മളൊരു പെർഫെക്ഷന് വേണ്ടി പോകും. അതിൽ പലപ്പോഴും നമുക്കൊരു പേപ്പർ കിട്ടണമെങ്കിൽ പെർഫെക്ഷൻ വേണമെന്നുണ്ട്. പക്ഷെ ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിക്ക് വേണ്ടത് ഒരു പ്രാക്ടിക്കൽ സൊല്യൂഷനാണ്. അപ്പൊ ഇത് രണ്ടും കൂടെ മാരി ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴാണ് ഇത് കിട്ടുക എന്നുള്ളത്. അപ്പൊ ഇതിന്റെ ഭാഗമായിട്ടാണ് കഴിഞ്ഞ ബജറ്റില് കേരള സർക്കാർ ഒരു വലിയൊരു അനൗൺസ്മെന്റ് നടത്തി. ഇൻഫാക്ട് അൺഫോർച്ചുനേറ്റ്ലി അവർ മീഡിയ ആൻഡ് പബ്ലിക് വിൽ വെരി റയർലി ടേക്ക് പോസിറ്റീവ് ന്യൂസസ് ഇൻ ടു മേജർ തിങ്. ഫോർ ദി ഫസ്റ്റ് ടൈം ഇൻ ദിസ് കൺട്രി വി ആർ സേയിങ് ദാറ്റ് കേരള വിൽ സെറ്റ് അപ്പ് in a small state like Kerala, we will set up 5 research parks. 4 സയൻസ് പാർക്കുകളും ഒരു ഡിജിറ്റൽ സയൻസ് പാർക്കും, 5 പാർക്കുകൾ നമ്മൾ സെറ്റ് ചെയ്യും. അപ്പോൾ naturally, I'm sure all of you have seen this, may not have even gone into the details of it. പക്ഷെ ഇതിന്റെ പിറകിലൊരു വലിയ ഒരു എന്താ ഒരു ഫിലോസഫി ഉണ്ട്. ആ ഫിലോസഫിയാണ് മാഡം ഇപ്പൊ പറഞ്ഞത്. അതായത് നമുക്ക് ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയെയും അക്കാഡമീഷ്യനെയും ഒരുമിച്ച് കൊണ്ടുവരാൻ പറ്റിയ ഒരു ഫെസിലിറ്റിയോ ഫോറമോ ഇല്ല. ആ ഫോറം ആയിരിക്കും ഈ സയൻസ് പാർക്കുകൾ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഇവിടെ ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിക്ക് ഉണ്ടാവുന്ന പ്രോബ്ലംസും ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയിൽ റിസർച്ച് നടക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇറ്റ്സ് നോട്ട് ദാറ്റ് ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി ഇസ് നോട്ട് ഡൂയിങ് റിസർച്ച്. ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ, ഇൻ ട്രിവാൻഡ്രം there are, if you ask the number of patents, there are industries who have done more number of patents than Kerala University altogether. So there are like that. So it's not true that industry research is not happening. There is industry research is happening, patenting is happening, IPR generation is happening. അപ്പൊ അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി എന്നുള്ള ആൾക്കാരും അക്കാഡമിയിൽ നിന്നുള്ള ആൾക്കാരും ഒരേ സമയത്ത് ഒരുമിച്ച് വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുക എന്നതാണ് നമ്മൾ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. ഇപ്പോൾ ഡിജിറ്റൽ സയൻസ് പാർക്ക്, ഡിജിറ്റൽ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി is already started. We already have 5 research organizations coming and working with us. ഒരു ഡിജിറ്റൽ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി മാത്രം പോരാ. We need KTU, we need the colleges like St. Kitts, we need other engineering colleges, non-engineering colleges, mathematics strong ആയിട്ടുള്ള ആൾക്കാർ. In fact, when the professor from Natiga said that he is not getting the right research environment, this sort of science parks and this sort of things are the right environment for him. അപ്പൊ നിങ്ങളുടെ ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷനിൽ ഇരുന്നുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇതുപോലെയുള്ള റിസർച്ച് പാർക്കിനകത്ത് വന്ന് അവിടെ ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയുമായിട്ട് ഇന്ററാക്ട് ചെയ്യാനുള്ള ഈക്വലി, അതാണ് ഞാൻ again I want to stress this point. It has to be interacted at an equal level, subservient level അല്ല. As an academic, I get a lot of I'm really concerned when a faculty actually ask an industry in a subservient level. We should not. നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്, നമ്മൾ ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയെക്കാളും നല്ലതാണെന്നും നമ്മളുടെ നോളജും അവരുടെ നോളജും കോംപ്ലിമെന്ററി ആണെന്നുമുള്ള ആ ഒരു അഷ്വറൻസോട് കൂടി നമ്മൾ പോകുമ്പോഴാണ് നമുക്ക് ഒരു ഈക്വൽ ലെവൽ വരുന്നത്. അങ്ങനത്തെ ഉള്ളൊരു പ്ലാറ്റ്ഫോമാണ് നമ്മൾ സയൻസ് പാർക്കുകൾ ഒരുക്കുന്നത്. Institutions can actually lead creating ecosystems. Again, Digital University is trying to create a graphene ecosystem. Nanomaterials ecosystem കേരളത്തിൽ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി ലീഡ് ചെയ്ത് ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാണ്. When I say leading and creating, we are only not making patents or papers, but we are saying that there will be methods in which technology can be translated to the industry, and even industry units can actually be set up. അങ്ങനെയുള്ള കുറെ അറ്റംപ്റ്റുകൾ നമ്മൾ നടത്തണം. എന്നാലേ, അപ്പൊ അത് എല്ലാം വലിയ ലാർജ് ലെവലിലാവണമെന്നില്ല. നമ്മുടെ ലോക്കൽ പഞ്ചായത്തിലാവാം, നമ്മുടെ ലോക്കൽ വളരെ ലോക്കൽ ലെവലിലാവാം. So quite a bit of such possibilities are possible in front of us. That is a change which we require. In fact, I am extremely convinced that ഞാൻ പല കോളേജുകളിലും across കേരളത്തിൽ നോക്കിയിട്ട്, even we call us remote area എന്ന് പറയുന്നിടത്ത് പോലും brilliant researchers there and brilliant solutions have been developed by them. പക്ഷെ അവരൊന്നും അത് അടുത്ത ലെവലിലേക്ക് കൊണ്ടുപോകാൻ അവർക്കുള്ള സപ്പോർട്ട് സിസ്റ്റം ഇല്ല. We are trying that. ഇപ്പോൾ പുതിയ ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയൽ പോളിസിയിൽ അതിനുവേണ്ടിയുള്ള കുറച്ച് കാര്യങ്ങൾ വരുമെന്നാണ് എൻ്റെ പ്രതീക്ഷ. We have discussed that. So മാഡം ഈ പറഞ്ഞ പോയിന്റ് ഭയങ്കര വാലിഡ് ആണ്. നമ്മുടെ കുട്ടികൾ പുറത്തെ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റികളിൽ പോയി റിസർച്ച് പഠിക്കുമെന്ന് പറയുന്നതിന് ആ ഒരു മോഡൽ മാറ്റിയിട്ട് ഏറ്റവും നല്ല റിസർച്ച് എക്കോസിസ്റ്റം ഇവിടെ ഉണ്ടാക്കണമെന്ന് നമ്മൾ തന്നെ തീരുമാനിക്കുകയാണ് വേണ്ടത്. അതിന് നേരത്തെ 1-2 സാറന്മാർ പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ നമ്മുടെ ലാബുകൾ തമ്മിൽ സംസാരിക്കാറില്ല, നമ്മുടെ ഗ്രൂപ്പുകൾ തമ്മിൽ സംസാരിക്കാറില്ല. ഇതെല്ലാം മാറേണ്ട അവസ്ഥയായി. We need to create a research climate. We need to ensure that interdisciplinary discussions happen. നമ്മുടെ ടീ ഷോപ്പുകളിലും അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ കോഫി ഷോപ്പുകളിലൊക്കെ ഇരിക്കുമ്പോൾ നമ്മുടെ സർവീസ് ബെനിഫിറ്റിനെ കുറിച്ചും നമ്മുടെ പെൻഷനെ കുറിച്ചും ഒക്കെ സംസാരിക്കുന്നതോടൊപ്പം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സംസാരിക്കുന്നതിന് പകരം നമ്മൾ എന്ത് റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യുന്നു എന്നും മറ്റുള്ളവർ എന്ത് റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യുന്നു എന്നും അതിനെങ്ങനെ ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി കൊണ്ടുവരാൻ കഴിയുമെന്നും ആലോചിക്കുകയാണ് വേണ്ടത്. I'm not joking here, because at Indian Institute of Science, which incidentally is one of the best research institutions in the country, Dr. C.N. Rao always used to say that I believe the real interaction happen in informal settings. കോളേജുകളിൽ അങ്ങനെ ഇൻഫോർമൽ സെറ്റിംഗ്സ് ഉണ്ടാക്കുക, കുട്ടികൾ തമ്മിൽ ഇന്ററാക്ട് ചെയ്യട്ടെ, ടീച്ചേഴ്സ് തമ്മിൽ ഇന്ററാക്ട് ചെയ്യട്ടെ. Then the earlier point which is mentioned that if somebody raises a question, you feel that you are threatened, അത് നമുക്ക് വാനിഷ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. ഇതൊന്നും അത്ര എളുപ്പത്തിൽ ചെയ്യാവുന്ന കാര്യമല്ല. These are all part of the transition, but the world is always transition not by a large number of people. ലോകത്ത് ഒരു വിപ്ലവവും നടത്തിയിട്ടുള്ളത് ആയിരക്കണക്കിന് ആൾക്കാർ ഒരുമിച്ച് വന്നിട്ടല്ല. ചെറിയ ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ഓഫ് ആൾക്കാർ who feel that this is needed and do it. Gandhiji used to say that no, a few ignited minds can actually make a big difference, can actually change the world. And that group is what we expect these FDPs will create. And that is something which we need to start looking at. So let me close by looking at how do we make an effective interdisciplinary researcher. ഈ പ്ലാറ്റ്ഫോമിൽ തന്നെ നമ്മൾ ആലോചിച്ച് നോക്കും. ഈ പ്ലാറ്റ്ഫോമിൽ സച്ച് എ വൈഡ് റേഞ്ച് ഓഫ് പീപ്പിൾ, ഇപ്പൊ 150 പേരുണ്ടെങ്കിലും ഒരു 50 പേരെങ്കിലും ആക്റ്റീവ് ആണ്. ഈ 50 പേരുടെ ബാക്ക്ഗ്രൗണ്ട് എടുത്തു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ യു സീ ഫ്രം മൾട്ടിപ്പിൾ ഡൊമൈൻസ്. Now you are from different institutions, but that is immaterial, right? നിങ്ങളുടെ കുട്ടികളിൽ നമ്മുടെ സ്റ്റുഡൻസ് പലരും അവർ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്ന സോഷ്യൽ മീഡിയ ഗ്രൂപ്പുകളൊന്നും അവരൊരു ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷനല്ല, മറ്റു ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷനാണ്. അപ്പൊ ഇതിനകത്തിരിക്കുന്നവർക്ക് ടുഗദർ ആയിട്ട് ഇഫ് people who are doing PhDs, people are doing postdocs, people who are yet to do PhDs, people who are publishing, if you come together and ask this question that okay, ജമീല ടീച്ചർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷനിലാണ് വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്നത്, ആ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷനിലെ സാധനം എങ്ങനെ എനിക്ക് എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗിനകത്തും കൂടി കൊണ്ടുവരാൻ കഴിയും? അപ്പൊ എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് എഡ്യൂക്കേഷനിൽ നമുക്ക് അറിയാവുന്ന ഒരു വലിയ ചലഞ്ചാണ്. എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് എഡ്യൂക്കേഷനിൽ പലപ്പോഴും സ്റ്റുഡന്റ് അറ്റൻഷൻ സ്പാൻ is actually going down. So can we actually combine the learnings in the educational experts into this? Can we come out with a newer model, newer methodologies, newer methods? ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഒരു ഫോറം നമുക്ക് ഇവിടെ തന്നെ ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. So that is something which we need to start looking at it. So for that we need to relook at our research process. We need to relook at our myths and practices, and some of them you already spoke about. And then we look at the tools and frameworks and the institutional support. So typically, if you look at the research process, any research process, we start with the problem, then we have link it with a theory. Based on that, we make a model, we make hypothesis, we develop a methodology to support or negate hypothesis, which is the fighting. Then we disseminate using one of the research outcomes, maybe a conference, maybe a paper, maybe something else, or maybe a PhD thesis. And now with PhD, UGC say no need of publication, you can just put a PhD thesis and then close it down. That's also possible. But each of these, we need to go into more detail. So these three processes, you ask this question, is the problem really interdisciplinary? If the answer is no, I can solve the problem without connecting with any of the other people, then next question we need to ask is it really a basic research? ഇത് ബേസിക് റിസർച്ച് അല്ല, അപ്ലൈഡ് റിസർച്ച് ആണ്, പക്ഷെ ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി അല്ല എന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ there is something wrong with that problem. Simple, period. There is something seriously wrong, or you are not addressing the problem which will make impact. പ്രോബ്ലത്തിനുള്ള നമ്മൾ ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി അല്ലാതെ നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ, ഞാനൊരു ഫെർട്ടിലൈസർ ഡെവലപ്പ് ചെയ്യാണ്, ഐ എം ഡെവലപ്പിംഗ് എ ന്യൂ ഫെർട്ടിലൈസർ, okay, and I don't consider the economic aspects of it. I don't consider the environmental aspects of it. I don't consider the long-term health aspects of it. That means my product, when it is my technology, when it develop, my fertilizer when it develop, the adaptability of that in the world is going to be very, very small. So impactful research for practice purpose വേണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ interdisciplinary approach is very, very relevant. So second, obviously we need to ask this question, whether it is relevant to create new knowledge, because that's the only way we will actually get the publications which we discussed earlier. The second is the process. ഇതിലാണ് പലപ്പോഴും നമ്മൾ മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് വരുന്നത്. ഈ പ്രോസസ് അപ്രോപ്രിയേറ്റ്, നമ്മൾ എങ്ങനെയാണ് പലപ്പോഴും റിസർച്ച് പ്രോസസ് ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നത്? സാധാരണഗതിയിൽ നമ്മൾ റിസർച്ച് പ്രോസസ് ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നത് നമുക്ക് മുമ്പേ ഉള്ള സീനിയർ എന്ത് ചെയ്തു എന്നോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഗൈഡ് എന്തോ ചെയ്തു എന്നോ നോക്കിയിട്ടാണ്. We very rarely actually look at the research process from a genuine aspect. ഇതൊന്നും അല്ലാത്തവരുണ്ട് കേട്ടോ. I'm not saying that not everybody. I'm saying that many times we happen that way. And very rarely we actually have a team to do it. റിസർച്ച് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഞാനും എൻ്റെ ഗൈഡും മാത്രം ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യമായിരിക്കും. റിസർച്ച് ഡോക്ടറൽ കമ്മിറ്റിയൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടാവും, പക്ഷെ ഡോക്ടറൽ കമ്മിറ്റിയിൽ വരുന്ന ആള് സൈൻ ഇടാൻ വേണ്ടി മാത്രം വരുന്നതാവും. വെരി റെയർലി ദാറ്റ് പേഴ്സൺ actually give inputs, or he is not expected to give inputs, and even if he start giving input, like earlier someone mentioned, it will be taken more as a criticism than the other one. ശരിക്ക് ഒരു ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി ടീമിന് ഒരു ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി ഒരു ഒരു മെത്തഡോളജി തന്നെ ഒരു ടീം തന്നെ വേണം. പക്ഷെ ഇവിടെ ഒരു മേജർ ഇഷ്യൂ ഉണ്ട്. മേജർ ഇഷ്യൂ ഇസ് ദ മെത്തഡോളജി, ബിക്കോസ് ഡിഫറെന്റ് സ്ട്രീംസ് ഹാവ് ഗോട്ട് ഡിഫറെന്റ് മെത്തഡോളജി. ഒരു സോഷ്യൽ സയൻസ് ടീമിന് പലപ്പോഴും ഇംപിരിക്കൽ മെത്തഡോളജിയാണ് അവർ അഡോപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ദി ഹാർഡ് സയൻസ് പലപ്പോഴും കമ്പ്യൂട്ടേഷണൽ മെത്തഡോളജിയാണ് അഡോപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. What we call in general as deductive and inductive. Even I don't consider empirical as inductive, but generally we can actually broadly divide into deductive and inductive sort of approach. Now, deductive, inductive, say for example, you are doing research in Malayalam. You may be doing more of an inductive approach. അത് ഒരു പക്ഷേ കമ്പ്യൂട്ടർ സയൻസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരാൾക്ക് ഒരിക്കലും അത് മനസ്സിലാവണമെന്നില്ല. പക്ഷേ മലയാളത്തിൽ റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യുന്ന ആളും കമ്പ്യൂട്ടർ സയൻസുകാരനും കൂടെ റിസർച്ച് ചെയ്യേണ്ട ആവശ്യമുണ്ടോ എന്ന് ചിലപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ ആരെങ്കിലും ആലോചിക്കുന്നുണ്ടാവും. ആസ്ക് ദിസ് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ: കേരളത്തിൽ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് അറിയാത്ത എത്ര പേരുണ്ട്? ആൻഡ് വി സീ ദാറ്റ് ദർ ഇസ് എ ലാർജ് നമ്പർ, റൈറ്റ്? 3.5 കോടി ജനത്തിൽ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് വളരെ കൃത്യമായിട്ട് എഴുതാൻ അറിയാവുന്നത് ഒരു പക്ഷേ 1 കോടി ജനം ഉണ്ടാവുള്ളൂ. 2.5 കോടി ആൾക്കാർക്ക് ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് കൃത്യമായിട്ട് എഴുതാൻ അറിയില്ല. ഈ 1 കോടി ജനത്തിന് എത്ര പേർക്ക് ഒരു കമ്പ്യൂട്ടർ പ്രോഗ്രാം ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും? Because our computers can be programmed only using English language, right? So we are actually denying them, not using, denying them an opportunity to use ഒരു application use ചെയ്യുന്ന കാര്യമല്ല, denying them to develop something. That's basically where the linguistics, language and the computer science have to come together and create a new research problems and new research solutions. So the areas where you think they are not connected, there is a huge amount of connection which is possible. So that is something which but the methodologies are different, and methodologies people don't appreciate. നമുക്ക് റിസർച്ച് മെത്തഡോളജി കോഴ്സിൽ ക്വാണ്ടിറ്റേറ്റീവ് മെത്തേഡ്സ് ഉണ്ട്, ക്വാളിറ്റേറ്റീവ് മെത്തേഡ്സ് ഉണ്ട്. നിങ്ങൾ ചെയ്യുന്നത് എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് റിസർച്ച് ആണെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾ ക്വാളിറ്റേറ്റീവ് മെത്തേഡ്സ് പഠിക്കുകയില്ല, ആ പോർഷൻ അങ്ങ് വിടും. നിങ്ങൾ ക്വാണ്ടിറ്റേറ്റീവ് മെത്തേഡ്സ് മാത്രമായിരിക്കും പഠിക്കുക. You don't even consider qualitative methods as something good. If you are doing a research in social sciences, if you are doing a research in, especially in the real art and liberal domains, you will go more into qualitative methods. പക്ഷെ പലപ്പോഴും അതിൻ്റെതായ റിഗർ മിസ് ചെയ്യണമെന്നുണ്ട്. ഇത് രണ്ടും കൂടെ കമ്പൈൻ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി റിസർച്ചിന് this becomes much more challenging. There you need to actually go into more detailed frameworks and theories, etc. I shared you a paper. It actually gives you some very interesting insight on how do you develop the theoretical frameworks when you are doing the interdisciplinary research as such. Then
Sir,
we also
sound is not audible. Is something is going on?
You are not able to hear? Kekam vaye? Hello?
I think it's
Yes, sir, we
audible.
can hear you, sir.
Maybe your mic has a problem, Dr. Jamila. Yeah. And the last point is primarily on the presentation part of it. And again, a interdisciplinary outcome is, ഇപ്പൊ നിങ്ങളൊരു മാത്തമാറ്റിക്സ് ആണെന്ന് നോക്കുക, മാത്തമാറ്റിക്സിലുള്ള നിങ്ങളൊരു ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി റിസർച്ച് നടത്തിയ ശേഷം ഒരു ഹാർഡ് കോർ മാത്ത് കോൺഫറൻസിൽ പോയി അത് പ്രസന്റ് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, unless you have developed a very strong mathematical model or a newer axiom there, you may not get acceptance. പക്ഷെ ഇന്ന് there is a lot of avenues where interdisciplinary research is actually being accepted, or interdisciplinary research have to be there. അപ്പോൾ ആ ഒരു ചോയ്സ് എടുക്കേണ്ടതും നമുക്ക് ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻ്റ് ആണ്. And you have Q1 journals also in that area. So just give you an example of an area where I work with operations, where
Sir, CLgram तो स्कूल में था, उसी के कुछ होगा?
देखो आपके डिपार्टमेंट कोऑर्डिनेटर हम रिटन में तो दे आपका खुद में साइन कर रखे, जबकि टीचिंग प्रैक्टिस में ये होता है
जी,
साइन नहीं करेगा वो टीचर।
क्या कर
नहीं यहाँ तो कर रहे हैं सर आप साइन।
मेरा प्रॉब्लम
अपनी-
क्या है?
okay, so see, for example, in this, just give you one example. See, in operations management, this area where I work, if you look at across the period, there is a shift in managing paradigms, shift in methodology, modeling to case approach as such. Now, when I'm actually doing the first case, where the management paradigms were more operational, I don't need an interdisciplinary approach, because I'm primarily looking at a machine. In a machine, I have to put 10 items. How optimize I can put these items? how ensuring that the machine is utilized perfectly. But today that problem is irrelevant, because if I go to a new company and say that I have developed a new methodology where your machine can be used effectively, he will say that I don't want that. I want my factory to be efficient, my supply chain to be efficient, where the machine will become a part of it. So I need to shift from operational to a very strategic role sort of a thing, which means I need to take people
Sir,
who
it is not audible.
I don't know whether it is a problem with you or with others, Dr. Jamila. എല്ലാവർക്കും കേൾക്കാവോ?
Yes, we can.
Audible here.
Keep
sir.
on with it.
It is audible.
കേൾക്കാം സർ.
Yes.
I think okay, so I think Dr. Jamila has got the problem. So maybe her mic is off or something like that. So this is one change of focus. The second is actually on the, that is what we mean to say, when functional, it becomes interdisciplinary. So naturally you cannot do that. So the shift happens based upon the type of problems which you do. So this also is relevant because the research approaches are also now changing. In the conventionally, when we do, in fact, most of us do this, where we do more of a deductive models, where we reconstruct an objective reality through a deductive approach. But when you look at hardcore social scientists, people who are working in areas like history, or in areas where arts, they actually go an inductive approach. So the challenge is that in interdisciplinary research, you need to combine this, or you need to look at the problem and see which methodology is ideal, or maybe you can create a hybrid methodology. പക്ഷെ നമ്മൾ കാണുന്ന പലപ്പോഴും ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള റിസർച്ചേഴ്സ് ഒരുമിച്ച് വരുമ്പോൾ they may not really appreciate each other's method. അവിടെ നമുക്ക് ഒരു ഇന്റർവെൻഷന്റെ ആവശ്യമുണ്ട്. We need to really require an intervention. We need to understand that each method has got its own positives and negatives. One is not inferior to other, and each method has to have its own methodologies of implementing it. അത് നമുക്ക് മനസ്സിലായാൽ മാത്രമേ ഇത് യൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുള്ളൂ. So it also, another area which actually challenges is what I mentioned earlier, some of our existing practices. A is the doctor committee, which I already mentioned. So if you are getting into interdisciplinary research and your organization has to do that, it's important that the doctoral committees has to be truly interdisciplinary as such. And the understanding between multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary is still not clear with many. Multidisciplinary is primarily where എൻ്റെ പ്രോബ്ലത്തിന് പല പാർട്ടുകളുണ്ട്, ഓരോ പാർട്ട് ഓരോ മേഖല ചെയ്യും, ആൻഡ് ദാറ്റ്സ് നീഡഡ്. പക്ഷെ ഇന്റർഡിസിപ്ലിനറി അങ്ങനെയല്ല, ഇവ ഇന്റഗ്രേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് ക്രോസ് ഡിസിപ്ലിൻ ആയിട്ട് പുതിയ നോളജ് ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നതാണ്. പുതിയ പ്രോബ്ലംസ് എല്ലാം, സോഷ്യൽ പ്രോബ്ലംസ് എല്ലാം, ടെക്നോളജി പ്രോബ്ലംസ് എല്ലാം ഒരു മേഖല കൊണ്ട് മാത്രം സോൾവ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നതല്ല. സോ ഇറ്റ് റിയലി റിക്വയർ ദാറ്റ് അപ്രോച്ച് ആസ് സച്ച്. So which also require, in fact, this point which I think Dr. Jamila mentioned, you really require a combination of all these things. Usersum, research centersum, translators, innovation, എല്ലാം കൂടി വന്നാൽ മാത്രമേ ഒരു research ecosystem create ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുള്ളൂ. So let me close by saying that if you look at models of research, there are two areas in which we need to really focus on. We need to be very clear that if India has to achieve its dream of become a global knowledge village or whatever be, or Kerala want to have achieved this dream of becoming knowledge economy, or your institutions have to become an objective of achieving relevance in the new world, especially when teaching is actually over the period, over the time, teaching will become more and more marginalized. There are a lot of resources coming from outside. It's important that our organizations produce high quality research. When you say high quality research, it is defined in two ways. And this is not or, this is and. A, it should have good amount of citations, which means the academic peers revere you. It should have a good impact in the society. So you solve a societal problem, you create newer knowledge industries which takes from that. Achieving both these two is not possible in the conventional modes of research. The conventional modes of research, you are primarily taking a problem, splitting it. Either you focus on part only, or you focus on one part and give other parts to other experts and then trying to combine them, which the elephant story tells us is many times can actually be counterproductive. What is required is that a group of people coming together and then start looking at the problem, look at the complementarity of the theories which each of them bring in, and create a new theory or new process or new purpose or new product, which both at the knowledge level as well as at the implementation level are going to get going to add value. That's to do that, we really require individual and institutional transition. The mere fact that Kerala State Higher Education Council has initiated an FDP, and I've seen great people are coming and talking to you. Most of them have led interdisciplinary research in their organizations. Is an example of how that transition is actually happening. And if Kerala really want to excel in the knowledge economy, and if our institutions need not get wiped off, our individuals need not get wiped off when the wave of change happening globally, nationally, don't follow the path of companies which failed in 1990s change. This movement from disciplinary, disciplinary to transdisciplinary is not anymore a choice. We may have to do that. I hope that at least some of you sitting here will seriously attempt that based on this FDP, and you will see a lot of interesting interdisciplinary researchers coming out, which excel both at knowledge creation as well as knowledge application. Wish you all the very best for a reasonably interactive session. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take. Once again, thank you very much.